Imagine if you could turn back time.
Good evening. I'm Tom Brokaw. It was like being in the eye of a hurricane.
Relive your life and times with exclusive moments from NBC News. Join Jane Pauley for Time and Again every night at 7 Eastern on MSNBC.
Make the digital revolution work for you with The Site, on cable, on the internet. The Site, every night at 10, only on MSNBC.
The revolution begins here.
From now on, the promise of the internet and the power of television become one. Because from now on, NBC News and Microsoft will revolutionize the way you get news.
MSNBC.
A 24-hour cable and internet news service. The future of news from the people you know. MSNBC. You're connected to MSNBC.
Good morning and welcome to MSNBC. I'm Jody Applegate, and here are some of the top stories we're covering for you today. Boris Yeltsin is a no-show for a planned meeting with Vice President Al Gore, and now questions are once again swirling about the Russian leader's health. Bob Dole is fading fast. A new MSNBC poll has a bleak forecast for the Republican candidate, and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia can't see eye to eye in the wake of that bombing. The U.S. wants to move its troops to safer quarters, but the Saudis say no way. Along with those stories, we're making a little news of our own today with the launch of MSNBC. News and information 24 hours a day. Join us here on cable and connect with us at our own website, MSNBC on the internet. You'll find it at msnbc.com. Every day, we'll take the top stories and cover them in depth, bringing you context and perspective using the worldwide resources of NBC News and Microsoft. One of the biggest stories in the coming months, of course, the race for the White House, and that's where we find Tom Brokaw this morning. Tom?
Jody, good morning. There is a growing sense of anticipation here at the White House as this campaign steps into ever higher gear with every passing week. The Democrats and the Republicans, of course, next month will hold their national convention. The GOP in San Diego, the Democrats will be in Chicago. President Clinton spent this weekend with his family at Camp David, but he is coming back to the White House this morning because he has what we think is a very important appointment tonight at 8 o'clock on MSNBC, the debut of Internight. That's our primetime interview program, and I'll be going one-on-one with the president. We'll have a lot to talk to him about, including that meeting today that did not occur in Moscow between Vice President Al Gore and Boris Yeltsin, the president of Russia. Or is he? We'll be asking the president about that, and we'll be asking questions that have been submitted to as well on the Microsoft network on MSNBC.com. Thousands of queries over the weekend. By the way, Internight will occur every night during the week at 8 o'clock. I'll be joined by a distinguished list of colleagues, Bob Costas and Katie Couric and Bryant Gumbel, Bill Moyers, and Ed Gordon, all of them on Internight. So we'll have a lot to talk about tonight on MSNBC at 8. On MSNBC, on Internight, and then, of course, I'll see you from here tonight as well on NBC Nightly News. So, Jody, we're off to a fast start.
All right, Tom, I hope you have time for those thousands of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Of course, another major story that we're going to be covering this summer is the Olympics. And to tell us more about that now, today's Katie Couric and Matt Lauer. Good morning, Katie and Matt.
Hi, Jody. Good morning. I want you to know that Matt and I are extremely jealous, and we're going to demand a cappuccino machine in our next contract, Jody.
But ours is going to work. It's going to be hooked up.
Pretty exciting. Anyway, as you mentioned, Jody, we're going to be headed to Atlanta this week. The Today Show will be live in Atlanta for 2.5 weeks beginning Wednesday. The opening ceremonies, of course, are on Friday. They will be held here at Atlanta's brand new Olympic Stadium. You're looking at a live picture of that right now. That's also where some of the key events of the games will take place, especially track and field. And today, by the way, is official check-in day at the Olympic Village. Thousands of athletes will converge here beginning this morning. Of course, the Olympics are about more than just sports. Politics, security, even the southern summer heat could well become part of this story, and that's something Matt and I are watching very closely. In fact, I'm starting to schwitz just thinking about it.
No, baby powder is the key. I bought a big tub of it, and I'm going to be handing it out for all of us. You, Bryant, everybody, Al, we can all use it.
Sounds like a good
Also,
idea.
traffic is going to be a concern. People are curious about how this is going to be congested in downtown Atlanta, how you're going to get from one venue to the other anyway. We're going to talk about all those stories and a lot more from Atlanta throughout the games. MSNBC will be your source for Olympic news throughout the entire day. And MSNBC on the internet will make the coverage interactive, providing a goldmine of resources for Olympic Games and Olympic news. Jody?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Katie. Whether it's politics, the Olympics, or any of the stories we're following, will also provide historical perspective, something made easier by the 250,000 hours of material in the NBC News archives. Throughout the day, we'll show you some of the best of NBC News over the years. And every night at 7 Eastern Time, we'll bring it all together on Time and Again with Jane Pauley. Jane?
Thanks, Jody. NBC News has been around a long time, bringing the news to generations of Americans. On Time and Again, we'll share some of the most compelling television of the past 50 years, exploring the living history within the NBC News archives. We'll connect the past to the present, revisiting stories large and small, reported by all the great men and women of NBC News. The Nightly News with Tom Brokaw carries on the tradition of Huntley and Brinkley, of Frank McGee, and the late John Chancellor. Today, alumni include Dave Garroway, Frank Blair, Jim Hartz, and Barbara Walters. I recall spending some time there myself. Time and Again launches tonight with the story of Apollo 11, the giant leap for mankind 27 years ago this week. NBC News coverage as it happened, much of it unseen for more than a quarter of a century. Jody?
Thank you, Jane. Bringing all the day's developments into focus every night at 9 here on MSNBC, the news with Brian Williams. Brian?
Jody, it has been a dream around here, around NBC News and the other networks, I might add, for a long time to have a full hour in prime time to present the news. That dream is upon us tonight in almost 12 hours. Among the stories we're following for tonight's premiere program, that rash of black church burnings across the South. We'll look at how one Texas town is working out to put out the fires, literally, of hate about both black and white. We also want to let you know you can find more on that story on our webpage. This is the way it's going to work. We'll have specific information about individual churches, for example, the status of each investigation, all part of MSNBC on the internet. Jody?
Thank you, Brian. One of the ongoing stories that we're covering at MSNBC is the communications revolution, new technology, new media, all with a profound effect on everyday life. Every night at 10 Eastern Time, The Site will bring you the latest. Here's Soledad O'Brien with more.
Hi, Jody. Tell Katie and Matt that if they want to borrow my cappuccino machine, I'd love to have them borrow it if they ever come out to San Francisco.
Okay.
The digital revolution is changing the way we live and work. And for 1 hour every night, the site will examine the impact of technology on our lives. In addition to covering the latest industry news every night, we'll talk to the leaders who are making it all happen. Tonight, we'll tell you the inside story of hacker Kevin Mitnick, and you'll meet the first real-time computer-generated cyber journalist. Reach us on the World Wide Web at thesite.msnbc.com 24 hours a day for more information, complete transcripts of interviews, and to tell us what you think. Jody?
Thank you, Soledad. As we've seen this morning, getting connected also means exploring MSNBC on the internet at msnbc.com. NBC News and Microsoft are partners in this venture. In fact, right now you're looking live at the MSNBC newsroom at Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, Washington. MSNBC will tap Microsoft's internet resources to bring added dimension to the day's news coverage. All the programs we've talked about this morning, as well as the programs of NBC News, provide additional services on MSNBC on the internet. Ways to talk back, get more information, to explore sights and sounds, as well as links to related stories. It's all about covering the news, and to that end, here's this morning's top story. Russian President Boris Yeltsin has postponed a meeting scheduled for today with Vice President Al Gore, fueling speculation about his health. Aides say Yeltsin is well but on vacation and will meet with Gore tomorrow. NBC's Jim Maceda is in Moscow this morning with the latest. Jim?
Good morning, Jody. Well, I can only add that we're all excited here out of Moscow to be a part of this first broadcast by MSNBC. As you mentioned, eyebrows and questions were raised once again concerning Boris Yeltsin's health. The Russian president's sudden change of plans caught visiting U.S. Vice President Al Gore off guard. Leading a high-powered U.S. delegation to discuss nuts and bolts issues on the economy, defense, and health, Gore was all smiles when he met with Russia's #2 man, Prime Minister Viktor Chernomyrdin. But just an hour earlier, a scheduled meeting with Yeltsin was called off.
I learned this morning that it would be postponed until tomorrow.
Chernomyrdin weighed in, saying that Yeltsin's health was normal, that he was just recovering from an exhaustive presidential campaign. Later, Yeltsin's spokesman said the president had begun a 2-week vacation and warned not to read anything into the change of plans.
There's no basis for panicking. He's simply tired, really tired.
But he'll be resting and meeting Gore here at a sanatorium outside Moscow, where Yeltsin was hospitalized for a heart condition twice in the past year. That's likely to raise yet further questions about Yeltsin's health and his ability to govern. Besides congratulating Yeltsin on his recent re-election, Gore, it is said, is also carrying a stern message of U.S. disapproval of Russia's latest offensive in Chechnya, the breakaway republic. Dozens of Chechen civilians have been killed or wounded in recent days, despite a peace treaty Yeltsin signed with Chechen rebel leaders. Both sides blame the other for the violence, but what is clear, Yeltsin's failed to keep his campaign pledge to end the war. Earlier, Gore made public Washington's displeasure.
We believe that it is the right thing for both parties to return to the ceasefire.
Meanwhile, Moscow remains on high alert after 2 bus bombs last week, leaving 8 Muscovites in serious condition. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attacks, but Moscow authorities suspect Chechen involvement. This post-election meeting was to highlight a renewed back-to-business attitude, getting reforms in Russia back on track. But again, it's questions about Yeltsin and Russia's future that cast a long shadow. Jody, sorry.
That's okay, Jim. So will Vice President Gore just wait around indefinitely, or is he not going to wait for Mr. Yeltsin?
He doesn't have to wait, Jody. There is now a confirmation that that meeting will take place tomorrow. But again, this meeting will take place at a sanatorium. One doesn't expect Boris Yeltsin to greet the U.S. Vice President in his PJs. But then again, he will be in a somewhat weakened position, and that picture is going to get out around the world and is very, very likely to raise the same questions about whether Yeltsin can govern, and if he can't, who governs in his stead.
All right, Jim Masada joining us live from Moscow this morning. Thank you very much. It's time now to take a look at what else is making news in the world this morning. For that, we go to Lori Stokes. Lori?
Thank you, Jody. 3 weeks after that deadly truck bomb in Saudi Arabia, the U.S. complains that it's being shut out of the investigation. The Saudis say that they found the bomber's getaway car just days after the attack. FBI agents say that they haven't seen it. Another contentious issue between the two nations. The U.S. wants to move some of its troops to safer locations. The Saudi defense minister says the U.S. forces are safe right where they are. A shaky peace in Northern Ireland is shattered for the first time in 2 years. A bomb went off in Northern Ireland in a small town on the southern border. The blast is reinforcing fears that full-scale terrorism has returned to the province. NBC's Kevin Tibbles has been following the unrest. He joins us now from Belfast. Kevin?
Bombs thrown at a police station. Many people here in Belfast are saying it's almost too quiet. This morning, the inevitable, the first funeral since the rioting began, that of a Catholic man killed early Sunday fighting with police. Overnight, Northern Ireland was an eerie place. The streets of its cities quiet, left to the police and army to patrol. A stark contrast to the barrage of gasoline bombs, rocks, and bottles that have rained down since last Thursday. Instead of rioting, angry Catholics took to the streets, marching in memory of the dead man, showing their defiance.
Peace demands justice, and justice needs change. And there are powerful elements in this state who don't want change.
This, the worst wave of violence in 20 years, was sparked by Protestant demands to march past Catholic neighborhoods. Protestants are also seething because an IRA splinter group is suspected of blowing up this hotel Saturday night. People are now waiting for the Protestant militants to retaliate. On the streets, people are seething. Ask a Protestant who's to blame, you hear this.
The future of peace should be very, very well if we could get rid of the IRA.
Then ask a Catholic.
Yes, I would say we're on the slippery slope to disaster, and I think it's all got to do with loyalist politicians.
Protestant loyalist politician Billy Hutchison, who also blames the IRA, sees it this way.
Yes, I think that's the problem with Northern Ireland. I think that people's always looking for scapegoats.
People may be looking for scapegoats, but they're also looking for martyrs. Today's funeral just means the peace talks will be under added pressure when they resume this week. And already one political party here has said it will not be attending those peace talks, a protest over the fact the orange Protestant marches were allowed to go through Catholic neighborhoods. So before the peace talks even get underway, things are looking mighty bleak here in Northern Ireland.
This unrest at this recent flare-up of violence could carry over the water to the Isle, to London, that we could see what we saw back in the 80s with the IRA and bombings.
In many aspects, we've already seen that. There have been 3 bombs in the London area, one at Canary Wharf, also in Manchester, at a British Army base in Germany. I think that's why I said at the beginning of all this that people are saying it's almost too quiet. They're waiting to see what the Protestant militants are going to do, and on this, at the same hand, they're wondering what the IRA is going to get up to.
Explain to us a little bit about the splinter groups, not the IRA, but the other splinter groups. How radical are they? How much power do they have?
I think the splinter groups are a bit of a wild card because they are the rogues in all of this. Perhaps they may be attached to the IRA, but they're not taking their directives from the IRA. At least if they are taking their directives from the IRA is not admitting it. And that is, I think that's the one reason why people are suggesting that the Protestants may not retaliate here, because it wasn't the provisional IRA that set off that bomb on Saturday night. It was a splinter group. People are hoping that because it was a splinter group, there may not be the severe retaliation that many people are fearing.
Thank you, Kevin. NBC's Kevin Tibbles reporting from Belfast. Well, intense heat is keeping firefighters from claiming 2 victims of a natural gas blaze in Dime Box, Texas. It's about 55 miles east of Austin. It began last Saturday when a rig exploded, sending flames shooting into the sky. Flames are visible from 20 miles away, and officials say the fire may burn for as many as 10 days. It's unknown what caused the explosion. And sports driver Jeff Krosnoff died Sunday when his car went airborne. His wheels touched the car in front of him. Toronto crash also took the life of a racetrack worker. Meanwhile, in France, 5 people are dead following a race crash there. Car plowed into a group of spectators. The winds have died down a bit, but the cleanup is just beginning. The Red Cross is tallying the damage in the wake of Hurricane Bertha. Bertha's long gone, but while she was here, she destroyed nearly 200 homes along the North Carolina coast and damaged about 6,000 more. 10 teams of state and federal emergency workers and insurance officials are touring the state, trying to put a dollar amount on those damages. Nothing quite so exciting going on in the weather this morning. Here's a quick scan of what's happening around the country. Thunderstorms up in the northeast corridor, some of them severe, but the rain is good news in the west. That shaded area that you see means one corner of the drought country is getting some relief. The rain in the southeast is bringing one more small benefit. It's cooling things down just a bit. Florida is a bit below normal, but it's not going to be sweater weather. If you're traveling today, you can expect to run into some summer showers in the southeast, but the only trouble spot is in the northeast. It's a great day for traveling in the Midwest or doing just about anything else you feel like doing. Let's go back now to Jody.
All right, Lori, 17 minutes into our first day. How you feeling so far?
Pretty good. How are you feeling?
Well, so far, so good.
Yeah,
We've got 24 hours to fill here, so
we're not going to do all 24 hours. So
no, not in a row anyway. All right, thank you very much, Lori. Well, ethical questions, Whitewater, and the FBI files case have not cut into Bill Clinton's lead over Bob Dole. In fact, an MSNBC poll shows the president is pulling away from his Republican challenger. Voters say they're better off now, and they think Clinton cares about them, while Dole is a candidate of the rich. We're going to take a break now, but we'll have more on our MSNBC political poll when we come back. Stay tuned.
New moms need all the help they can get. Tonight, my husband's doing it all. Even the dishes. He pre-rinses everything, right down to the very last dish.
No matter who does the dishes, Cascade does the dirty work. Other leading brands can leave spots. Cascade with sheeting action gets them so clean they're virtually spotless.
Perfect, honey. Honey?
You can keep all those moisturizers that promise to correct my wrinkles. I want to stop them before they start.
UV rays can cause wrinkles. Now help stop them by using a Moisturizer Plus sunscreen every day. Oil of Olay Daily UV Protectant. Only Oil of Olay combines its light, greaseless moisturizer with SPF 15 to help prevent premature aging.
The only good wrinkle is the one you never get.
For a lifetime of beautiful skin, help stop wrinkles before they start. Oil of Olay Daily UV Protectant.
NBC and Microsoft enter a new era as President Clinton joins Tom Brokaw on the premiere of Internight, taking calls and questions from the internet. Tonight at 8 on MSNBC.
Here, Doris. Got a meeting in Davenport. Be back tomorrow.
Once upon a time, a businessman figured out a brand new way to travel.
Afternoon. Tires broke down a couple miles back. Gonna miss a big meeting in Davenport.
That's so.
Say, could you, fly me there and back?
Let me get this straight. You want me to fly you there, sit there and wait for you while you have this meeting, then fly you back?
Through the years, one airline has always listened to the business flyer. United's employee owners have found it really pays.
Thanks for flying me. Next time, maybe you could have some coffee on board?
Let me get this straight. You want coffee on the plane while we're in the air?
Come fly our friendly skies.
Travelgate, the file flap, Whitewater. The scandals that have dogged President Clinton in the press apparently haven't hurt him in the polls. A new MSNBC poll released today has Mr. Clinton holding steady in the race for the presidency, while support for Bob Dole, the presumptive Republican nominee, is fading. In a poll of registered voters conducted over this past weekend, Clinton would handily defeat Dole if the election were held today. Clinton remains the choice of 54% of voters, while Dole has lost 7% since NBC's last poll in late June. Since that last poll, Dole has lost ground virtually across the board among men, independents, even Republicans. Meantime, most voters say they are happy with President Clinton, and more voters say they're better off now than they were 4 years ago. NBC's Washington Bureau Chief Tim Russert joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Jody.
Are you surprised by all this?
Well, Jody, it's an indication.
There you are.
All right.
Hi,
How
Tim.
you doing? Hi, Jody. You know, it's a strong indication about right now how strongly the White House feels about their political position. The caveat, however, is that any poll is a snapshot. We are 114 days from the election, 114 more shopping days till to November 5th. And so things can change. But as of now, those numbers you showed, particularly that last one, Jody, people feel they are better off than they were 4 years ago. The economy is strong, and President Clinton has a very, very strong lead over Senator Dole. The most interesting thing inside the poll, Jody, is that amongst Republicans, Bob Dole is only getting 2 out of the 3 Republicans right now. They're very much undecided. The key swing vote here, women, Bob Dole is losing by 30 points to Bill Clinton.
It seems like that 7-point drop just in the past 3 weeks is significant. That doesn't just sound like a sampling irregularity or something. Could it be?
It's a little bit above the margin of error. And Senator Dole, his campaign will acknowledge they have not had a good couple of weeks. His refusal to address the NAACP, his flare-up over whether tobacco is addictive with Katie Couric, his difficulty in finessing the abortion issue with the more conservative elements of his party. But I think it's more fundamental, Jody. Bob Dole has not yet laid out a rationale why he should replace Bill Clinton. Until he does that, we're going to see these kind of poll numbers. He does have a convention coming up in just 3 weeks where he'll have for 4 nights the attention of the American people. I think you'll see these poll numbers shrink then. But as of now, Key groups, women, independent voters, have decided they prefer Bill Clinton by large numbers.
That 24-point disparity that we see right now between Clinton and Dole, is that unprecedented for someone this far out from an election? Has anyone been that far behind in mid-July and still won?
It's no. The simple answer is no. Ironically, in 1976, it was Gerald Ford and Bob Dole as vice president running against Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale, who came from 33 points down to within 2 points, but they did not win. Jody, one other interesting thing which is inside this MSNBC poll, when we put Ross Perot in the equation, it's Bill Clinton 50, Bob Dole 25, Ross Perot 13. Bob Dole has to secure his Republican base. He has not yet done so. I believe all the bickering within the Republican Party about tax policy and abortion has prevented Bob Dole from securing his loyal Republican followers as of this date.
Tim, something else inside your poll is what effect various running mates might have on all this, and we'll explore that and some other issues when we come back here on MSNBC.
Centrum? I just feel better knowing I'm taking it.
Centrum's complete. Every time a vitamin makes news, I check my Centrum label, and Centrum's got it.
It's Centrum's commitment to ongoing research that ensures you always get the best nutritional support. A more advanced multivitamin. Centrum, always more complete than any leading brand.
The Centrum people thought of everything.
Like they say, from A to zinc.
Centrum, more complete from A to zinc.
I can't get my kids to eat right. All they want is junk food. Yeah. Do they like chocolate milk? Sure. One way to give them extra nutrition is with rich chocolate Ovaltine. It's got vitamins Nestle Quick and Hershey's don't. Yeah, it may be good for them, but will they like it? My kids love it. They absolutely love it. So my kids will like Ovaltine and it's good for them? Wow. When my kids want chocolate milk, it's rich chocolate Ovaltine.
Rich chocolate Ovaltine in the new blue package. Tastes great. Great for you.
Welcome back. We're going to broaden out our conversation a little bit here with the friends of MSNBC. We're calling them contributors, and let's meet them. Laura Ingraham joins us, also Lawrence O'Donnell to her left, and on the far left, although this isn't necessarily a reflection of where you stand politically, Niger Innes, and Tim Russert continues to join us from Washington. Thank you all for being with us this morning. Were you surprised by the results of this poll?
I wasn't. You know, he's in a free fall, Bob Dole, without a parachute in sight. He manages to be allergic to the key strategy for a successful campaign, keeping on message. He's hit into a triple play with abortion, assault weapons. He's taking on people like Katie Couric. I mean, the guy doesn't know how to stick to a message. Republicans are getting incredibly worried. What they're going to do over the next several weeks, I think you're going to see Bob Dole coming out with a specific tax cut package, with a specific voucher proposal for schools, and talking about the issue of violent juvenile crime, which is skyrocketing in this country. People want to see vision. 70% of Americans in the MSNBC poll said the candidates aren't talking about issues. That's where Bob Dole can make some headway into this.
Tim, do we pair any particular running mate with Bob Dole that lets him win in this scenario?
Well, the only one is Colin Powell, but he's not going to do it. So now Bob Dole has reduced the field basically to Governor Voinovich of Ohio, Governor Ridge of Pennsylvania, Governor Whitman of New Jersey, former Secretary of State Jim Baker is the token graybeard, if you will. But none of those candidates, Jody, will give Bob Dole immediate pop in the polls. Bob Dole's going to have to win this race on his own. He's going to have to go to the country, lay out an agenda, a rationale. I keep going back to that word. He has to convince the country that he has a reason to be president, other than it's just his turn.
All right, Lawrence, you're a former congressional aide to Daniel Patrick Moynihan, having worked in Washington for all those years. What's your take on all this?
Well, it is surprising to see Dole losing Republican support. There's no particularly obvious reason for that in the last 3 weeks. But, Tim's earlier point about this being a snapshot is very important. Let's just remember where the current president was at this time 4 years ago. He was running third. He was running after Ross Perot and George Bush. So this is a different dynamic, and the gap between Clinton and Dole is really stunning at this point. But moving from 30 to 50 is possible.
All right. Well, if you would like to get some more details on the results of this MSNBC poll, the full results are available at MSNBC on the internet. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with our contributors here and Tim Russert in Washington. Stay tuned. You're watching MSNBC.
Ask what your dad does? Nobody ever asked me. Richard, when your last name is Smucker and you live in Orville, everybody knows what your dad does.
These two Smuckers grew to make the jam their great-grandfather made, the same delicious way.
Everybody knows? Who told us?
For almost 100 years, the Smucker family has made it good. With a name like Smuckers, it has to be good.
3, 2, 1, blast off!
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best. It's the quilted quicker picker-upper. Bounty is quicker. It gets what this other towel left behind. Ordinary towels tear on carpets, even top-quality towels, but Bounty's stronger, more durable.
The quilted quicker picker-upper.
Quilted Bounty.
Welcome back to MSNBC. We're talking with our contributors here this morning about the results of the new MSNBC poll about Clinton versus Dole. And you might be wondering, who are these people? Well, our friends, our contributors, as we're calling them, are a group of lawyers, humorists, public affairs people, anybody who we think has interesting stuff to say about what's going on in the world these days. And you'll get to know these folks and our other contributors over the months if you watch. One person from whom we have not yet heard this morning, and that cannot stand, is Niger Innes. Good morning, Niger.
Good morning.
What's your reaction to this poll?
Well, I think that, while Lawrence has a good point that this is a snapshot in time and that the polls can change at any time, Dole could conceivably come back, there seems to be a consistent losing of blood by Bob Dole going all the way back to February during the primaries when he got a bloody nose from Pat Buchanan. And it seems that there's a growing inevitability with the American public that Clinton is going to win this election. Even among Republicans in this poll, it says that 47% of Republicans believe that Clinton is going to win. So it's becoming harder and harder and harder for Dole to close the gap. Also, when you consider that that old question that Ronald Reagan posed to Jimmy Carter, are you better off 4 years ago? Were you better off 4 years ago than you are now? Most Americans feel that they are much better off with Clinton, with a good economy, with low inflation, with low unemployment, and with Ross Perot now jumping into the race. Now it makes it even more difficult for Dole to really get his message and to narrow that gap.
Niger raised a really good point about Pat Buchanan. Tim, did we factor Buchanan into this at all? If Republicans abandon Dole, do they revive the Buchanan candidacy? All right, well, perhaps Tim's taking a coffee break. That's okay. Do you think Buchanan can go to the convention now and say, well, I'm still here?
Well, Buchanan's doing that. He's in the newspaper today saying Ross Perot can take my voters. What he means by that is the Republican Party had better pay attention to me, Pat Buchanan, or all my voters are going to go to Ross Perot. That's a pretty strong argument at this point. And the Republican Party desperately has to figure out what to do with Buchanan.
Tim, are you there?
I'm sure I am, Jody.
It's okay. Did we factor Buchanan into this at all, or do we plan to next time we do a poll?
Well, it's interesting. Pat Buchanan is going to look at these numbers and say to himself, wait a minute, if Bob Dole drops down to 25% in a three-way race with Ross Perot, what difference would a four-way race make? Maybe I should jump into this thing as well. I don't think that will happen in the end. Pat Buchanan wants to be president of the United States. He's going to run for the Republican nomination in the year 2000. He doesn't want to antagonize people by being disloyal. But with Bob Dole perceived as a, quote, weak nominee, Pat Buchanan's going to give him a very hard time at the convention in San Diego in a few weeks.
All right. Do we see, amid all these numbers, any nuggets of an idea for what Dole can do to reverse this course?
Well, what Americans consistently tell pollsters is that they still fear crime. They still think their public schools are crumbling. Those are two issues that Dole can hit out of the ballpark. He has to act decisively. He has to come out with specific policy proposals before the convention. He's got to get the big momentum moving for him. Now the momentum's with Clinton. If he starts taking the offensive of things like tax cuts, Clinton came out for a middle-class tax cut. Americans know that. Americans want a tax cut. They're saving less for their children's education. Dole has got to do that, and he's got to do that quickly and decisively and stop getting into fights with people who are very popular in this country and start appearing like a leader, like a president.
We're less than a month away from the convention. Do you think he has time to do that?
Absolutely. Not only does he have time, but people like Patrick Buchanan, I think, oddly enough, are pushing him toward a more principled approach to policy making, a principled approach for running for president. I think that's a good thing.
Do you think this Republican convention will be interesting and exciting because of all this, or will it be upstaged by the Reform Party convention if there's a Lamb-Perot showdown?
Well, to the extent that any convention is interesting and exciting. I mean, I think those are excessive adjectives for conventions. But I think the main thing everyone's going to be watching now at this point is just, does Bob Dole make a big mistake? Does he screw up? There's this negative expectation of Dole in all public performance. And so I think reviewers like us are going to be sitting there saying, what did he do wrong tonight? And if he does nothing wrong, we won't have anything particularly positive to say about it.
Although people will be anxious about what running mate he's going to choose. This is going to be his first presidential decision, you could say.
Do desperate times call for desperate measures? I mean, does he have to do some big, outrageous, splashy thing like coercing Christy Todd Whitman into doing it?
I don't think outrageous, but there's not only a gap in terms of gender, but what people don't often talk about is the generation gap. I mean, Bill Clinton is not only much younger than Bob Dole, but he projects a vision, albeit wrong or right, for the future. Bob Dole has not. And he's got to project, by picking that running mate, he's got to project that individual that could possibly take over office if he were to unfortunately pass away.
Bob Dole actually had a very good weekend that the press chose not to really cover. That was his response to the president's address on Saturday. Bob Dole's response was taxes, taxes, taxes. It was very well written. It was very well presented. He found some very nice language for explaining the gigantic tax burden that he wants to suggest Americans suffer from, that working families pay more for food, clothing, and shelter, pay more in taxes than they do for food, clothing, and shelter. That's nice phrasing. He's got to run against Bill Clinton, having enacted the biggest tax increase in history, which technically it was. Wait till you see the taxes campaign, then we'll see what happens to this gap.
See, next you could be a Republican political consultant. How do you feel about that?
They're easy to consult with.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll have more on this. And in the meantime, if you want to know more about our poll, you can find it online. Check out MSNBC on the internet at www.msnbc.com. And while you're there, find out what states President Clinton polls the strongest in. Also, those states where Republican challenger Bob Dole leads the way. And get your questions in for President Clinton. He'll be talking to Tom Brokaw tonight on Inner Night at 8 Eastern right here on MSNBC.
I was just horrified when my daughter had cavities at her last dental visit. I said, "Doctor, what can we do?" He said, "I'll give her a fluoride treatment here, but she's got to brush twice a day the right way at home."
Because you can't have a dentist fluoride treatment every day, between visits, Crest Fluorostat treats your teeth with fluoride to continue the fight against cavities. It's a fluoride treatment for your teeth at home.
So Sally brushed with Crest, and her next visit was great. I've got to act like a mom and think like a dentist.
Crest, a fluoride treatment for your teeth at home.
When I sing from my soul, it reflects my inner pride and confidence. Part of that confidence is knowing that when I open my mouth, my teeth are incredibly clean. That's why I switched from ordinary toothpaste to Tartar Control Crest. My dentist says it has special tartar blockers. They're drawn to where tartar is forming, where you can see it and where you can't. So I'm confident my teeth are clean. And when I'm confident, it makes a difference inside and out.
Tonight on Time and Again, one small step for man, one giant leap for television. Relive the journey that captured the imagination of the world as it was originally seen.
What can you say about a site like that?
Join Jane Pauley for a look back at Apollo 11 on the premiere of Time and Again, tonight at 7/4 Pacific on MSNBC.
They are our mothers and daughters, sisters and wives. They are our friends and partners, but 1 out of every 9 will be stricken with breast cancer. That's why GE created its Senograph technology. It helps doctors detect tumors earlier, so a remarkable 91% cure rate is possible. So that all our grandmothers and granddaughters, best friends and good neighbors, may live happier, healthier, and longer lives.
Here, Doris. Got a meeting in Davenport. Be back tomorrow.
Once upon a time, a businessman figured out a brand new way to travel.
Afternoon. Car's broke down a couple miles back. Gonna miss a big meeting in Davenport.
That's so.
Say, could you, fly me there and back?
Let me get this straight. You want me to fly you there, sit there and wait for you while you have this meeting, then fly you back?
Through the years, one airline has always listened to the business flyer. United's employee owners have found it really pays.
Thanks for flying me. Next time, maybe you could have some coffee on board.
Let me get this straight. You want coffee on the plane while we're in the air?
Come fly our friendly skies.
When you buy a computer factory direct from Gateway 2000, our tech experts are there for you around the clock. What keeps them going?
When I fix their problems, guys that I don't even know will just come out and say, I love you, Gretchen. I'm married. At least I know I still got it.
Gateway computers feature the Intel Pentium processor. And the only way to get them is to call 1-800-GATEWAY. You've got a friend in the business. Give us a call.
To Lori Stokes, who has all of today's top stories, including renewed concern about Russian President Boris Yeltsin's health. Lori?
Thank you, Jody. Topping our news this morning, a surprise in Moscow. Vice President Al Gore was supposed to meet with the Russian president this morning, but that get-together has been abruptly postponed. Just before the meeting was set to take place, aides to Boris Yeltsin said that he was going on vacation. Yeltsin's sudden departure is raising more concerns about his health. The Russian leader had largely disappeared from view before the final round of presidential elections earlier this month. The meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow at the government resort where Yeltsin will be staying. The man who helped put a stop to the Bosnian war is once again heading to that region. Former State Department official Richard Holbrooke appears set to help negotiate the removal of Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic. Karadzic has been found guilty of war crimes by an international tribunal, and observers say the fragile peace in Bosnia will crumble if he's not brought to justice quickly. There is tension between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia as the probe into the deadly Dhahran blast continues. The FBI contends the Saudis are not keeping U.S. investigators completely informed, specifically about what could be a very important finding. NBC's Pete Williams explains.
Saudi investigators claim to have found the getaway car used by the men who drove a truck bomb to the housing complex in Dhahran, where last month's attack killed 19 Americans. But U.S. investigators say they cannot verify the claim because the Saudis have so far refused to give the FBI access to the car. The Saudis say it was a white Chevrolet Caprice Classic found in the port city of Dammam, just a few miles from Dhahran. Saudi authorities say the car had been stolen a few weeks before the bombing, then painted white. But U.S. officials are skeptical. They say the white Chevy Caprice is Saudi Arabia's most popular car, harder to trace. And they doubt that witnesses got a reliable license number at the bombing scene. FBI investigators want more freedom to pursue every lead there, but terrorism experts say if the Saudis grant that kind of access, it could further anger Islamic militants.
By allowing the FBI to come in and to have a relatively free hand, they're going to be aggravating the very social and political problems that gave rise to the bombing in the first place.
The FBI director, Louis Freeh, is back this morning from Saudi Arabia, where he again pressed for closer cooperation. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
And domestic terrorism is also in the news today as the Oklahoma City bombing case continues to unfold in court. The two key issues on tap: critical evidence from the blast and closed-circuit TV coverage of the trial for the victims and their families. The defense is expected to argue certain evidence relating to the suspected bombers and it is inadmissible. Among the items, bomb-making material seized at the home of Terry Nichols and the clothing Timothy McVeigh was wearing when he was arrested. Today is expected to be the last day on the job for Arkansas Governor Jim Guy Tucker. Tucker said he would resign today in the wake of being found guilty of charges related to the Whitewater case. He says that he wants to devote his full attention to appealing that conviction. The governor faces up to 10 years behind bars. Replacing him will be Lieutenant Governor Mike Huckabee. And that's the latest from the news desk. Now back to you, Jody.
All right, Lori, thank you very much. Lori, are you looking forward to the Olympics?
I am, but you're lucky you get to go.
Yeah, for a little while. Any particular event that you're excited about? Gymnastics?
No, I just marvel at all of it. I just think those athletes are just something to really idolize. They're great.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to it, too. And we'll be talking a lot about the Olympics. In fact, Olympic security. Let the games begin. Ahead on MSNBC, the Atlanta Olympics going for the gold in terms of safety. We'll have that when we come back.
Where you've been, where you are, where you're going. MSNBC.
Computers in Silicon Valley have a model number on them, and that's it. At Gateway 2000, our custom-built computers are treated a little differently. That's because every system we build has a name attached.
Connie Kramer, Connie from New Jersey. This is your computer, and it's on television.
Gateway computers feature the Intel Pentium processor. And the only way to get them is to call 1-800-GATEWAY. You get a friend in the business, give us a call.
To some, it's where the heart is. Others think of it as their sanctuary, while still others say it's their little piece of heaven. But no matter how you describe it, there's a Comet Home Care Cleaner to clean it. Whichever the room, Comet cleans more than just surface dirt. Its deep cleaning action gets to the bottom of deep down embedded dirt, so you get more than a surface clean. You get something that goes much deeper. Comet Home Care Cleaners, a deeper level of clean.
NBC and Microsoft enter a new era as President Clinton joins Tom Brokaw on the premiere of Internight, taking calls and questions from the internet. Tonight at 8 on MSNBC.
They are our mothers and daughters, sisters and wives. They are our friends and partners. But 1 out of every 9 will be stricken with breast cancer. That's why GE created its Senecraft technology. It helps doctors detect tumors earlier, so a remarkable 91% cure rate is possible. So that all our grandmothers and granddaughters, best friends and good neighbors, may live happier, healthier, and longer lives.
Tim, you know how kids ask what your dad does? Nobody ever asked me.
Richard, when your last name is Smucker and you live in Orville, everybody knows what your dad does.
These 2 Smuckers grew to make the jam their great-grandfather made, the same delicious way.
Everybody knows? Who told us?
For almost 100 years, the Smucker family has made it good. With a name like Smuckers, it has to be good.
A truck bomb in Tehran, a pair of trolley bombs in Moscow, new violence in Northern Ireland, Oklahoma City. Terrorism is grabbing headlines again, and folks in Atlanta have taken notice. They've boosted security for the Summer Olympics in hopes of stopping a similar attack. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is in Atlanta, and she joins us now with more. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Jody. Good morning, everyone. I'm here above Atlanta's Centennial Park, a place named for the 100th anniversary of the modern Olympic Games, which began, of course, in Athens, Greece. It's a place that will become very familiar to you over the next few weeks. A gathering spot that cost about $2.5 million, a place to meet and greet for Atlanta's many visitors. The athletes are already arriving. More than 90 international delegations are here. That means more than 100 countries still to come. And the games begin in 4 days.
Atlanta, the capital of the American South, is now host to the world.
6 years of planning and preparation invested, and 2 million visitors invited to join these centennial Olympic Games. The spectacle has started, but the job isn't quite done.
We're just putting on the final touches now so everybody can be real pleased with what they're coming to see in Atlanta.
I think we're ready. Right now, the crush is kind of exciting because we haven't had this. Atlanta has not.
Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport is already the country's busiest. This week, as many as 200,000 people are expected each day.
Hi.
At the Olympic Village, the first of 10,000 athletes find their way. Their home for the next few weeks has the tightest security of these games, a high-powered, high-tech plan.
The entire 7.5-mile perimeter of the Olympic Village will be covered with closed-circuit television cameras, as well as fenced and protected by an intrusion detection system.
This is the largest peacetime security event ever. Protecting the games will cost more than $300 million. The force is visible. 30,000 officers and agents from federal, state, and local law enforcement. They are teamed with technology. 800 cameras scan every Olympic site. World-class surveillance cameras track ID badges up to 10 feet away and even determine whether the right person is wearing it.
All of the athletes will have a radio frequency badge and will use the biometric access control.
Biometric access control sounds like science fiction. It measures not only fingerprints, but matches the bone structure of the athlete's hand for identification. Beyond the technology is simple training, like months of anti-terrorism drills to rehearse the response for the worst-case scenarios, a threat on the games. Atlanta Police Chief Beverly Harvard.
People have been trained and they know if X happens, boom, boom, boom. This is what you do. This is who you contact.
Some say with this level of security, Atlanta is arguably the safest city in the world for now. As visitors arrive, it's easily the most spirited. Oscar Flores and his family are from Mexico and already a part of the masses.
What crowds? What crowds? It's already picking up pretty much, but I hope it gets worse.
The streets are just as packed with homegrown enthusiasm.
To have people from all over the world come to the town I was born and raised in is great. I'm so excited, I really am.
Another sign things are underway. Atlanta's transportation system of trains and buses goes 24 hours today, and more streets in the immediate area are closed to traffic to keep things moving and to keep things safe. Jody?
Kelly, what kind of security threat are officials most concerned about this time around?
Well, no one wants to be too concerned to make this unpleasant for visitors, but what authorities are most worried about is some kind of threat from someone they don't know. NBC News intelligence sources say there is no identified threat against these games or any of the tourists by any known terrorist group, but certainly they are being cautious, they are prepared, and soon things get underway. Jody?
Sure do. All right, Kelly, thank you very much. We'll be right back after this.
Introducing Oil of Olay Sensitive Skin Body Wash.
I'm very protective of my skin, but I wanted the moisture. Then, the perfect body wash arrived.
From the body wash more dermatologists use and recommend. With 75% moisturizer, it puts more moisture in skin than any leading beauty bar or shower gel.
No scent, just tons of moisture. I don't even have to bother with body lotion.
New Sensitive Skin Oil of Olay 2-in-1 Body Wash.
I never thought of my skin as sensitive, but this feels so right.
Can you believe it? 7 days to treat a yeast infection. Who has time for that? Well, that's all changed. You don't have to go through a 7-day routine anymore. Now there's a terrific new yeast infection treatment, Femstat 3. Every bit as effective as a 7-day routine, but the only cream strong enough to treat in just 3 days. 3 days. There's no better cure without a prescription. And that means you've got much more time for other things in your life.
New Femstat 3. 3 days to fit your life.
How clean is your laundry? The new Gain Ultra 2 Show and Smell Challenge finds out.
Hi, I'm the Gain Man. What's your name?
Oh, so.
Hi, so you've tried Gain Ultra 2, yes?
Yes, I have.
Well, tell me about Gain.
Well, it's great. It smells great.
Do you have some clean laundry you could bring us to the door so I can smell how clean it is, right?
To the door?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will.
Now, what do you have for us here,
I
sir?
have a T-shirt.
Now, what did this look like before you washed it in Gain Ultra 2?
It's dingy. Not as white as it is now.
Ready? And? Congratulations, Sue, you've passed the challenge.
Oh, yay.
Sue's laundry passed the challenge. You may be next.
You can keep all those moisturizers that promise to correct my wrinkles. I want to stop them before they start.
UV rays can cause wrinkles. Now help stop them by using a Moisturizer Plus sunscreen every day. Oil of Olay Daily UV Protectant. Only Oil of Olay combines its light, greaseless moisturizer with SPF 15 to help prevent premature aging.
The only good wrinkle is the one you never get.
For a lifetime of beautiful skin, help stop wrinkles before they start. Oil of Olay Daily UV Protectant.
The revolution begins here.
Because from now on, NBC News and Microsoft will revolutionize the way you get news.
MSNBC.
A 24-hour cable and internet news service. The future of news from the people you know. MSNBC.
We hope our homegrown athletes break all kinds of records in the upcoming Olympic Games. But one American is expected to break a record today on the largest field known to man, outer space. American astronaut Shannon Lucid will set a new space endurance record this afternoon, 115 days aboard the Russian space station Mir. Lucid was originally scheduled to return to Earth early next month on an Atlantis space shuttle flight. The Atlantis liftoff has been delayed until around mid-September for replacement of 2 solid fuel rockets. Shannon Lucid talked to the press today from the space station about what setting a record means. Well, with MSNBC on the internet, you can pay a virtual visit to the Mir space station. Here's what we downloaded just a little while ago. If you log on, you can tilt and turn Mir to see it from every angle. To get an idea of what kind of living space Shannon Lucid and her comrades are coping with, you can go inside even. Take a look around. This is a representation of the core module where the astronauts live and work. Spacious, isn't it? Well, you can tour the place yourself and get new information as you go. Just click on msnbc.com. We've come a long way when it comes to covering exploration in space, but it's hard to match the excitement people were feeling 27 years ago when they watched Apollo 11 lift off, carrying the first men who had ever set foot on the moon. Here's how NBC News covered it at the moment.
60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading. Plus 30 seconds. Roll complete and pitch program. One Bravo is a abort control mode. Altitude's 2 miles. Oh, 11 Houston, you're good at 1 minute.
You can see Time and Again tonight at 7 o'clock on MSNBC.
When do you take your Pepsid AC? Well, you can take it before a meal to prevent heartburn or
Take it like you would an antacid after the meal to relieve heartburn. Before or after, one tiny Pepsid AC can control acid all night so you can sleep. Nothing lasts longer. And no other acid controller relieves heartburn faster. Not Zantac 75, not Tagamet HB. Pepsid AC. Before or after, you can be heartburn-free with Pepsid AC.
How clean is your laundry? The new Gain Ultra 2 Show and Smell Challenge finds out.
Hi, I'm the Gain Man. What's your name?
Oh, so.
Hi, so you've tried Gain Ultra 2, yes?
Yes, I have.
Well, tell me about Gain.
Well, it's great. It smells great.
Do you have some clean laundry you could bring us to the door so I can smell how clean it is, right?
To the door?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will.
Now, what do you have for us here,
I have
sir?
a T-shirt.
Now, what did this look like before you washed it in Gain Ultra 2?
A little dingy. Not as white as it is now.
Ready? And congratulations, Sue, you've passed the challenge.
Oh, yay.
Sue's laundry passed the challenge. You may be next.
Make the digital revolution work for you with The Site, on cable, on the internet. The Site, tonight at 10, only on MSNBC.
They are our mothers and daughters, sisters and wives. They are our friends and partners. But 1 out of every 9 will be stricken with breast cancer. That's why GE created its Senograph technology. It helps doctors detect tumors earlier, so a remarkable 91% cure rate is possible. So that all our grandmothers and granddaughters, best friends and good neighbors, may live happier, healthier, and longer lives.
Tim, you know how kids ask what your dad does? Nobody ever asked me.
Richard, when your last name is Smucker and you live in Orville, everybody knows what your dad does.
These two Smuckers grew to make the jam their great-grandfather made. The same delicious way.
Everybody knows? Who told them?
For almost 100 years, the Smucker family has made it good. With a name like Smuckers, it has to be good.
Good morning, I'm Jody Applegate, and thank you for joining us today for MSNBC's opening day. We're a 24-hour news channel combining the resources of Microsoft and NBC News on cable and on the internet. Our top stories this morning: Boris Yeltsin abruptly cancels a meeting with Vice President Al Gore, and Bob Dole slips in the polls, almost to the point of falling. Cuba finished in 5th place in the Olympics in Barcelona. But Fidel Castro's athletes may have a tough time repeating that success in Atlanta if teammates keep defecting to the U.S. A top Cuban baseball player defected just last week. This morning, the Cuban team left for the games, and NBC's Ed Rabel was there to see Castro's send-off. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Jody, and welcome to sunny Havana, Cuba, which ordinarily is forbidden to most Americans, but now is available to you through MSNBC. Also a place which has one foot in history, its hands full of today, and its fingers crossed for tomorrow. For example, Cuba's Olympic delegation, as you said, departed early this morning for Atlanta, Georgia. 220 athletes, trainers, and coaches vowing to uphold Cuba's place as a world sporting power, but mindful that some of Cuba's star athletes already have defected and that there may be more defections in Atlanta. One of the world's few remaining communist countries, Cuba is on very hard times. Still, Cuba spent more than $5 million this year getting its beloved Olympic team ready. Therefore, to Fidel Castro, the defections of one of his star baseball players and 2 boxers in the past 2 weeks was treachery of the worst kind, and he is furious. In front of his Olympic delegation, he poured scorn on the defectors, saying their greed and personal ambition led to what he called their vile betrayal of the country, like Judas betrayed Christ. Despite Cuba's small size, it finished 5th at the 1992 Barcelona Games, right after powerhouses like the United States and Japan. The Cubans hope to equal this feat in Atlanta. But they also know that because the Games are in the United States this year, there will be great pressure on their athletes to desert the side. Officials here deny that only the most loyal athletes are being sent to avoid defections.
We're sending the best athletes we have, the ones that can bring the best medals, and the ones that can ensure that we at least perform as well as we did in 1992.
Still, Cuban officials wish all their athletes were as loyal as Ana Fidelia Quirot, once the world's #1 runner in the 400 and 800 meters. When a kerosene cooker exploded in her kitchen in 1993, she suffered third-degree burns over 40% of her body, was expected to die. The scars are still there. Ana Fidelia struggled to come back, and now, at age 32, she looks to Atlanta as her last chance for the gold. And Jody, Ana Fidelia Quirot has undergone surgery some 13 times since that accident in 1993. Technically, she's considered to be handicapped, but don't tell Ana Fidelia that. She knows better.
Ed, we've heard about all the security in Atlanta designed to keep people who aren't supposed to be in from getting in. What kind of measures will there be to keep people from getting out?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I think that the Cubans are satisfied that they have done everything they can do, that they have talked to their athletes, that most of those athletes they've sent there are loyal, that they're not going to take any special precautions to try to guard them or keep them in. If some of them want to go, so be it. The Cubans say we have thousands of other athletes who are just as good and just as loyal.
Some of these athletes, particularly baseball players, don't just have the normal incentive to defect to get freedom and a middle-class life, but they could be millionaires because apparently some of them are good enough to play Major League ball in this country right away, right?
That's exactly right. And of course, that is the big problem because most athletes here do it for basically God and country, only in this case for country. And the lure of all those millions of dollars in the United States and so many scouts looking for terrific athletes, and Cuba has them, that makes a big problem for Cuba.
Do you get the feeling that there are a lot of really good athletes who aren't going to be allowed to go, who will be left behind there in Cuba because they're considered flight risks?
Well, that's the rumor here, you know, that the Cubans are only sending those athletes who are really loyal, who are sure to be able to compete effectively. But the Cubans say, look, we're sending those with the most experience, those who are going to be able to bring back the gold.
What impact have the defections that have occurred so far had on relations between the U.S. and Cuba?
Well, the relationship between the United States and Cuba is probably at an all-time low, and this didn't make things any better. The Cubans, of course, accused the United States of trying to use these defections as a means of undermining the relationship, as a means of embarrassing Cuba. But things couldn't get much worse. They can only get better.
Also, I understand that Cuba even has a site on the internet now. Do you know anything about that, Ed?
Exactly right. You know, as I said earlier, most Americans are forbidden to come here because of a U.S. economic embargo against Cuba. But Cuba has its own web page called cubaweb.com. So for those Americans who are interested in getting any more information, they can go right into their computer systems on MS, Microsoft, and take a look for cubaweb.com to find information about flights, information about weather, information about Cuba policy. All those documents put out by the Foreign Ministry are there for you to read if you're interested.
All right, Ed, thank you very much. Speaking of being on the internet, there's one way that MSNBC coverage can help you enjoy the Olympics on the internet. You can visit our Olympic web page, not just to get up-to-the-minute results, of course, but to find out more about the events you're watching. Here's an example of something we downloaded earlier, the diving competition. You can click through each facet of a dive and at any point learn what the judges are looking for. It's not just somebody jumping off a platform. Obviously, there are specific things that kind of happen too fast for you to see in real time, but you can slow it down there. That's just one example where you can learn about other events the same way. It's an interactive Olympics, and you can try it at msnbc.com. In the news this morning, new questions about Boris Yeltsin's health and the getaway car in that Saudi truck bombing may have been found. Let's get the details from Lori Stokes at the news desk. Lori?
Thanks, Jody. You're right. There are new questions about Boris Yeltsin's health just 2 weeks after Yeltsin was reelected as Russia's president. Yeltsin canceled a meeting with Vice President Al Gore this morning. The meeting's been rescheduled for tomorrow, but will take place at a resort where Yeltsin is resting. Yeltsin has been pretty much out of sight for most of the last month. 65-year-old leader has a history of heart troubles. Well, 3 weeks after that deadly truck bombing in Saudi Arabia, the U.S. complains that it's being shut out of the Saudis' investigation. The Saudis say they found the bomber's getaway car just days after the attack, but FBI agents say that they haven't seen it. Another contentious issue between the two nations. The U.S. wants to move some of its troops to safer locations, but the Saudi defense minister says the U.S. forces are safe right where they are. In Northern Ireland, a Catholic man is laid to rest today, a casualty of the breakdown in the peace process. He was killed in rioting over Protestant marches through Catholic areas. NBC's Kevin Tibbles has more this morning from Belfast.
This morning, the inevitable, the first funeral since the rioting began. That of a Catholic man killed early Sunday fighting with police. Overnight, Northern Ireland was an eerie place. The streets of its cities quiet, left to the police and army to patrol. A stark contrast to the barrage of gasoline bombs, rocks, and bottles that have rained down since last Thursday. Instead of rioting, angry Catholics took to the streets, marching in memory of the dead man, showing their defiance.
Peace demands justice, and justice needs change. And there are powerful elements in this state who don't want change.
This, the worst wave of violence in 20 years, was sparked by Protestant demands to march past Catholic neighborhoods. Protestants are also seething because an IRA splinter group is suspected of blowing up this hotel Saturday night. People are now waiting for the Protestant militants to retaliate. It's not that people here didn't want peace, but with generations of hatred just below the surface, it didn't take much for this situation to blow. On the streets, people are seething. Ask a Protestant who's to blame, you hear this.
The future of peace should be very, very well if we could get rid of the IRA.
Then ask a Catholic.
Yes, I would say we're on the slippery slope of disaster, and I think it's all got to do with loyalist politicians.
Protestant loyalist politician Billy Hutchison, who also blames the IRA, sees it this way.
Yes, I think that's the problem with Northern Ireland. I think that people's always looking for scapegoats.
People may be looking for scapegoats, but they're also looking for martyrs. Today's funeral just means the peace talks will be under added pressure when they resume this week. Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Belfast.
And a final note, we expect to talk with Jerry Adams in about an hour here on MSNBC. In other news, intense heat is keeping firefighters from claiming 2 victims of a natural gas blaze in Dime Box, Texas. That's about 55 miles east of Austin. It started late Saturday when a rig exploded, sending flames shooting into the sky. Flames are visible from 20 miles away, and officials say the fire may burn for as many as 10 days. It's unknown what caused the explosion. There's some good news in another part of the Southwest. It's raining in Phoenix, that one section of drought country that is finally getting some relief. If you're in the Midwest, enjoy a beautiful day. If you're up in the Northeast corridor, you could be in for a rough day of heavy thunderstorms. The storms make for a tough day, and they'll make things hot and sticky in the Northeast. Elsewhere, temperature shouldn't be a problem. It's even a little cooler than unusual down in the Southeast. And here's a heads up for anyone traveling today. Heading into that Northeast corridor means heading into bad weather. But the rest of the rainy weather that you see here should be just the usual summer showers. Well, today, a London court gave Prince Charles and Princess Diana their preliminary divorce. They'll be free of each other in 6 weeks. No comment from either person. Prince Charles is in Southeast Asia and is due to visit the U.S. this week. Diana is in London. She'll get a reported $26 million from Charles. And since $26 million isn't what it used to be, she'll also get up to $600,000 a year for business expenses. And Jody, I don't know about you, but I don't know what $26 million used to be like. I'd take it anyway.
Yeah, it just doesn't go as far as it used to.
Nah.
I wonder what kind of business expenses she has. I've heard that before. She needs to run her office.
She's a busy woman.
And she does do a lot of good works. And
That's
she
true.
visits
She does a lot of
hospitals and does that
humanitarian
sort of thing.
work.
I guess that's what that pays for. All right, Lori, thank you very much. Coming up next, Congress slugs it out over welfare and an innovative program in Wisconsin that could be welfare's model of the future. That's when we come back.
When you buy a computer factory direct from Gateway 2000, our tech experts are there for you around the clock. What keeps them going?
When I fix their problems, guys that I don't even know will just come out and say, I love you, Gretchen. I'm married. At least I know I still got it.
Gateway computers feature the Intel Pentium processor. And the only way to get them is to call 1-800-GATEWAY. You've got a friend in the business. Give us a call.
Keep up.
See you up there. Fun, huh?
Hey, Mom.
Did you leave any dirt out there?
All right, little.
Hey, I'm thirsty.
Yeah, what you got? Okay, listen up. We got some purple stuff, OJ, soda.
Sunny D, I'll take one.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Tastes like orange tangerine and lime.
Some healthy junk, too. Sunny D to go. All right.
Sunny Delight, the good stuff kids go for.
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best. It's the quilted quicker picker-upper. Bounty is quicker. It gets what this other towel left behind. Ordinary towels fall apart, even top quality towels, but Bounty's more durable. Quilted Bounty.
In the beginning, you read all the books. You sterilize everything. You even buy those expensive diapers. But eventually, you get over it and get Loves. Why Loves? They work and work great, especially on leaks. They pass these torture tests as well as pricey brands. But Loves cost less every day without coupons. Like you have time to clip coupons. You don't have time to read books with words. Hey, live and learn. And then get Loves.
Tonight on Time and Again, one small step for men, one giant leap for television. Relive the journey that captured the imagination of the world as it was originally seen.
But what can you say about a site like that?
Join Jane Pauley for a look back at Apollo 11 on the premiere of Time and Again, tonight at 7/4 Pacific on MSNBC.
Welfare reform. President Clinton wants to make sure that issue is his and his alone. Republicans in Congress would like to use welfare against the president. For her take on all this, we have NBC's Lisa Myers standing by on Capitol Hill. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Jody. It's likely to be a big week up here. In the Senate, you have Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott threatening all-night sessions to break gridlock in that body. And the House, as you say, is poised to pass another sweeping welfare reform bill. Now, you may recall that President Clinton has vetoed 2 previous welfare reform bills, but this is an election year, and the president would like to be able to say that he produced welfare reform, and so he's signaling he may be able to sign this one. Basically, what the Republicans are talking about is sending welfare back to the states and letting states, for the first time, limit how long anyone can stay on welfare. Now, in many states, that means that you might not be able to be on welfare for more than 2 years, or over your lifetime for 5 years. The critics say that this undoes America's historic commitment to the poor and could send another 1.1 million children into poverty.
Some Republicans have expressed skepticism that the president will really ultimately sign this. Is there skepticism well-founded, do you think?
Well, I think there are really 2 bodies of opinion up here. One is that the president is dying to sign any kind of welfare reform bill so that he can say that he kept his promise to end welfare as we know it. Others are skeptical. After all, the president at one point last year had said he could sign a welfare reform bill passed by the Senate. The bill which came to him was slightly different, and he vetoed it after he had got tremendous pressure from New York Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan and other pro-poverty poverty interest groups.
Does this allow everybody to say, I did something good? The congressional Republicans can go home and say it, and the president can say it in the presidential race also, right?
Well, the important thing about this, Jody, is that essentially that the congressional Republicans are putting their own interests first ahead of the interest of former Senate Majority Leader Robert Dole, their presidential candidate. The House Republicans are basically terrified about their own reelection. They want to go home and say, we did something important. Welfare reform is important. Senator Dole had hoped that the president would not get to sign a welfare reform bill because he wants this issue for the presidential election. So essentially the big winners, if a welfare reform bill is signed, will be President Clinton and congressional Republicans, and the big loser will be Senator Dole.
And what's the timetable on all this? When do we expect to see this actually signed?
Well, the House will pass a bill this week. The Senate could pass one in a couple of weeks, assuming that they get legislation moving over there again. So the likelihood is something might be signed in the fall. Again, it's a very big if. There's a long way to go. But for the first time, there is a very real prospect that a sweeping welfare reform bill will become law.
All right, Lisa Myers joining us live from Capitol Hill this morning. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you, Jody.
It's 17 minutes after the hour right now, and we have to take a quick break. But when we come back, we will include our MSNBC contributors in our discussion about changing welfare as we know it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Step 1 is now complete. MSNBC.
You can still smell the coffee brewing every morning. You can still hear kids being called to the table. And you can still taste the simple goodness of Kellogg's Corn Flakes. The best things in life never change. You gotta make it a great day.
We bought the business from Jimmy's father. That's why he pushes himself. He doesn't want to disappoint the old man. His back began giving him grief last month. He'd take Advil, plug along, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. So his doctor said to try a leave. Take it every 8 to 12 hours.
Oh, I like that.
Winds up at the end of the day, a leave is stronger relief than a dose of Advil. A leave was all it took. This year, he may even take a day off.
You take enough for both of us.
Aleve. All day strong, all day long.
When the day is just about done, the world isn't going anywhere. It'll now be there waiting for you.
The news with Brian Williams every night at 9, only on MSNBC.
Keep up!
See you up there. Fun, huh?
Oh, hi. Hey, Mom.
Hi. Did you leave any dirt out there?
All right, little.
Hey, I'm thirsty.
Yeah, what you got? Okay, listen up. We got some purple stuff, OJ, soda.
Sunny D,
I'll take one. Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Tastes like orange tangerine and lime.
Some healthy junk, too. Sunny D to go. All right.
Sunny Delight, the good stuff kids go for.
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best. It's the quilted quicker picker-upper. Bounty is quicker. It gets what this other towel left behind. Ordinary towels fall apart, even top quality towels, but Bounty's more durable.
The quilted quicker picker-upper.
Quilted Bounty.
Back again, continuing our look at welfare reform and what seems to be more important at the moment, the politics of welfare reform, with NBC correspondent Lisa Myers at the Capitol and our NBC contributors joining us here. Laura Ingraham, who was described to me as a hip Republican, so we'll see if he can live up to that billing. To her left, Lawrence O'Donnell, a former aide to Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And way down there at the end of the table, Niger Innis, a civil rights activist. Good morning to all of you, and thank you for joining us. Lisa, can you hear me? Oh, Lisa's gone. Oh, well, that's fine. We can carry on anyway. What do you think? Is this a victory for the president and another loss for Dole if he and the Republican Congress can all say, look what we accomplished?
Well, this is one of those issues that Bob Dole, again, can seize upon and actually start the momentum going his way. Americans across the board, Democrats, Republicans, want welfare reform. The president said he was going to end welfare as we know it in a State of the Union address. Bob Dole and the Republicans gave him 2 bills. He didn't sign them. He said he was going to approve Tommy Thompson's Wisconsin plan. He's been delaying and dragging his feet on that. Bob Dole's got to talk about the 2 faces of Bill Clinton on welfare. The inside the Beltway the face, that's been the roadblock to welfare reform, and the outside the Beltway face, which is, I'm all for it. And that's what he's got to start talking about, the real issues. People want welfare reform. They want it now. They don't want rhetoric. They want it now. Bob Dole's got to seize upon that. If he does that, he's going to do very well. That's going to be one of his big issues this campaign year.
Lawrence?
Well, the question on this is, where do you want to begin the story? Everybody seems to focus on the Republican congressional efforts on so-called welfare reform. Bill Clinton offered a welfare reform bill. It was genuine reform. He offered it when there was a Democratic Congress. Bill Clinton's plan was to spend $15 billion more in 5 years on welfare. Clinton wanted to spend more. That's how you reform welfare. Clinton now is in favor of signing legislation that will spend $50 billion less on welfare. This is not welfare reform. This is welfare repeal. It repeals the title of the Social Security Act in which FDR provided for an entitlement to welfare. This is a complete rout of Bill Clinton, a complete wipeout of Bill Clinton's position on welfare, but he, knowing that the public mind and the public memory doesn't stretch more than 12 months, and even that the political class's memory doesn't tend to stretch more than 12 months, is pretending that him getting to sign this bill is a victory for him. He doesn't believe in a single sentence in this legislation, and he proved it with his own legislative proposal 2 years earlier. But he's going to sign it because the politics of welfare are, you've got to be tough in 1996 on welfare.
And there's no one to the left of Bill Clinton for Democrats to vote for if they're angry about it?
There are 12 senators, 12 out of 100, to the left of Bill Clinton on welfare. It has been a reversal in a policy position, the likes of which we have never seen in the mere 12 months that it took to happen.
The whole Clinton plan is a reversal. Come on.
While I agree that Clinton's convictions, not only on welfare but on many other issues, aren't as strong as they should be, it does seem to me that as much conviction that he might have had in his first welfare reform bill, the fact that he couldn't get it passed in a democratically controlled Senate and a democratically controlled House of Representatives means that there were more fears about the bill than just Republicans, obviously.
It was that the calendar was too crowded. They were doing health care, they were doing the GATT, and they were doing NAFTA, and you just couldn't fit it in.
They
didn't actually try to pass it.
You have 2 years, all right, that he has control of Congress, that this president has control of Congress, and he doesn't get it done.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Hold that thought. We'll try to squeeze in a commercial, and we'll be right back after this.
How clean is your laundry? The new Gain Ultra 2 Show and Smell Challenge finds out.
Hi, I'm the Gain Man. What's your name?
Oh, so.
So you've tried Gain Ultra 2, yes?
Yes, I have.
Well, tell me about Gain.
Well, it's great. It smells great.
Do you have some clean laundry you could bring us to the door so I can smell how clean it is, right?
To the door?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will.
Now, what do you have for us here, Sue?
I have a T-shirt.
Now, what did this look like before you washed it in Gain Ultra 2?
It's a little dingy. Not as white as it is now.
Ready? And congratulations, Sue. You've passed the challenge.
Oh, yay.
Sue's laundry passed the challenge. You may be next.
You know what? On Wednesday, I tried a terrific new yeast infection treatment. By Saturday, I was ready to move on to other things in my life. And all because of new Femstat 3. Every bit as effective as the 7-day routine, but the only cream strong enough to treat in just 3 days. 3 days. You won't find a better cure without a prescription. Why be distracted by a yeast infection when there's so much else to do in life?
New Femstat 3. 3 days to fit your life.
Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion here this morning with Laura Ingraham, who's a former law clerk for Clarence Thomas, by the way, and a former speechwriter in the Reagan administration. Also, Lawrence O'Donnell and Niger Innes, who wanted to continue with what he was saying before the commercial, Niger.
The political implications of him signing this particular bill, I think it's Bob Dole's biggest nightmare. I mean, to see Bill Clinton on a lawn surrounded by congressional Republicans signing a welfare reform bill and having that card, you know, I'm sure Bob Dole wanted to use in the presidential campaign, the fact that Bill Clinton had promised to change welfare as we know it and had 2 years of a democratically controlled House and Senate and couldn't get it done. He signs this bill he gets it done. There is radical change with this bill, with the welfare going back to the states and states being able to determine their own destiny in terms of welfare reform.
But let's talk about what it does to President Clinton's base. His base is very anti this kind of radical, as Lawrence said, severe rollback of welfare entitlements, an entitlement that's been around for 30 years. So I don't think we can minimize the effect to his core supporters, people who go out and knock on doors for him.
Laura, his base is not protesting at all. There is not a single protest, not one civil rights group, not anyone who you expect to hear from on welfare legislation.
Not yet. You'll be hearing from Jesse Jackson and the rest of the people from the NAACP will be talking about this week.
That might help Bill Clinton in a general election.
It might help him, but what Bob Dole has to do is he has to seize upon the whichever way the wind blows Bill Clinton, who changes his mind at the drop of a hat at a MSNBC poll or a CNN poll or whatever kind of poll you're talking about. Bill Clinton will change his position. Is that the kind of president Americans want to take the country into the 21st century? I'm not sure, and I think Bob Dole's going to start talking about that.
Can he make a lot of hay out of Clinton's reversal on this specifically, though, or does it get kind of far removed from the real issue and seem petty?
I don't think the public cares very much about politicians reversing themselves as long as they reverse themselves in the direction of the public, which essentially is what Clinton is trying to do on every single issue. So I don't think the public penalizes you for turning around and agreeing with them more.
What Clinton is going to have to do, and I agree with Laura here, what Dole is going to have to do is make this election an election on character, based on character of the individual. Consistently in all the polls, including our recent MSNBC poll, people give Dole higher ratings and trust Dole more than they would Bill Clinton. Nevertheless, they're still voting for Clinton. So he's got to make this election about the character of Bill Clinton versus his own character.
And I also think what you touched on earlier, Jody, is people have to believe that this election matters, that this is going to be a real radical shift in this country. People are beginning to think that it doesn't matter, that if they elect Bill Clinton or Bob Dole, whatever, it's not really going to matter for policy. Bob Dole's got to show President Clinton to be the roadblock to policy, not the purveyor of policy.
Laura, Lawrence, Niger, thank you all. We'll be right back after this.
Here's another valuable tip from Ditech Funding.
Tip number 5. A 30-year fixed mortgage protects you for the future. Your monthly payment and interest rate will never go up. If rates go down, you can refinance at the lower rate, often with no closing costs.
At Ditech Funding, our fixed rates are some of the lowest on the market. Call Ditech now and we'll send you a free copy of Ditech's tips for cutting the cost of a home loan. Call Ditech Funding now at 1-800-71-FIXED.
I can't get my kids to eat right. All they want is junk food.
Yeah. Do they like chocolate milk?
Sure.
One way to give them extra nutrition is with rich chocolate Ovaltine. It's got vitamins Nestle Quick and Hershey's don't.
Yeah, it may be good for them, but will they like it?
My kids love it. They absolutely love it.
So my kids will like Ovaltine and it's good for them? Wow.
When my kids want chocolate milk, it's rich chocolate Ovaltine.
Rich chocolate Ovaltine in the new blue package. Tastes great. Great for you.
Welcome back to MSNBC, and thanks for connecting with us on our first day. In the news this morning, Boris Yeltsin stands up Vice President Gore, nerves jangle in Northern Ireland, and Bob Dole watches President Clinton widen a lead that was already pretty big. But first, Bosnia. In Bosnia, campaigning for a September election is being delayed. The reason, Radovan Karadzic won't step down as the leader of the Bosnian Serbs. An international arrest warrant is out for him and the commander of the Bosnian Serb military. They're accused of war crimes in Bosnia's civil war. NBC's Tom Aspel joins us now from Sarajevo. Good morning, Tom. What's the latest?
Good morning, Jody. The U.S. is sending Richard Holbrooke back to the Balkans to keep Bosnia's elections on schedule. The Serbs are creating problems, and Holbrooke is going to have to pull them into line.
Bosnia should have begun campaigning for a general election today, but it's been delayed because the Serbs haven't severed ties with their leaders indicted for genocide and crimes against humanity. Serb political leader Radovan Karadzic still wields power in nearly half of the country despite the West's efforts to sideline him. His military partner in the 43-month Bosnian War, General Ratko Mladic, has also been indicted as a war criminal. American investigators are digging up mass graves in eastern Bosnia, collecting evidence against the two men, and U.S. troops and their allies in Bosnia have orders to arrest them on sight. There are moves to expand those orders into a full-scale manhunt. Holbrooke negotiated the Dayton Accords to end the fighting here last summer, but Bosnians say they can't have a lasting peace while Serb leaders sabotage plans to unite the country under one government. They want Holbrooke to make sure Karadzic and Mladic are either in custody or out of the political limelight so that the elections can go ahead.
Meanwhile, a group of retired American military officers has arrived here to begin a training program for the Bosnian army. It's all part of making the peace process work. Mladic and Karadzic appear to be the last obstacles into making peace last. Jody?
So, Tom, what is the timetable? When should we realistically expect to see elections then?
Well, right now, the OSCE, the body in charge of holding the elections here, has scheduled them for September 14. And so far, the campaigning for the elections has only been delayed for 4 days. So it looks as though if Holbrooke can work his magic by visiting Zagreb, Belgrade, and Sarajevo and influencing behind the scenes there, that they will go ahead on September 14. Jody.
So could this be the beginning of the end for Karadzic?
Well, yesterday, the French foreign minister on a visit to Sarajevo mentioned that he'd like to bring up to the France would like to bring up to the Security Council to have the mandate of the IFOR forces here changed, to give them the power to go looking for Karadzic and Mladic. And once, if that happens, then yes, it's only a matter of time before those two men are in custody.
All right, Tom. Tom Aspel joining us from Sarajevo. Thank you very much. Bosnia is far from the only troubled spot in the world today. Northern Ireland, Chechnya, and the Mideast are also steeped in conflict. The world's wars may feel far away, but when they're fought on the internet, they can feel quite close to home. Political organizations from the Sinn Féin to the Likud have websites. To show us the web's eye view of the day's top news stories is Mary Kathleen Flynn, MSNBC's internet correspondent. Good morning, Mary.
Hi, Jody. Political groups all over the world are using the internet to get out their messages. Today, we're taking a look at the Bosnian Serb sites, and here's a sort of a campaign poster. You talk of sacrifice. And here we've got the Bosnian Serbs sort of having a chance to tell their side of the story. On the other side, the official Bosnian government is, there's a site here from the Embassy of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they've put up a map. The information is not necessarily juicy, but it's informative. It teaches you about Bosnia.
How can you decide if a site is valid? I mean, if some prankster opens up a site and says, okay, this is the official Bosnian Serb website, I mean, that's a problem that's sort of endemic
throughout the internet. Exactly. I think you have to be careful to check out the sources. I think over time you learn who to trust and who not to, just as you do with newspapers, with magazines. But there are some rather famous cases of people pretending to put up a site that isn't legitimate. There was a Bob Dole pineapple site, in fact, that obviously was not legitimate.
Let's talk about another conflict that's getting a lot of attention these days, the one in Northern Ireland.
That's right. Yeah, there again, both sides are represented. What we're seeing here is the Sinn Féin, which is, of course, the people who want to separate from Britain, and they've got a site here that shows prisoners of war talking about their experiences. On the other hand, you have the Ulster Unionists, and they, of course, are the largest Protestant party.
Can there be terrorism on the internet? I mean, can someone go in and plant a virus in someone else's website to try and destroy it or spread disinformation?
Well, I think in terms of disinformation, I think what you'll find is much more likely to be these sort of fake sites. But there are computer viruses that can be spread, and you can't make a computer completely secure. You have to just add different layers of keys, almost as if you would with your car or your home.
Could someone plant something on here to disfigure the way it actually looks? Or I'm trying to figure out what the computer equivalent of a bomb would be, actually.
Well, I think a computer virus, and yes, they can just wipe out the contents of a site completely. If you wanted to take a look at Russia,
yes,
today this is Russia Today, which is an electronic newspaper, and they are indeed up to date. They talk about the canceled meeting with Gore.
Now, this is a Russian published paper, or is it published by the West?
It's a newspaper that's published in the former Soviet Union. There's also the unofficial Chechnya page, and this is a site that talks about trying to get the word out from the Chechens' point of view. It's not a particular party. It's not official. It's just some individuals putting it up, but they talk about praying to Allah and trying to get their point of view across.
All right, what about elsewhere in the Middle East?
Well, we've got in the Mideast.
Yes.
This is a site that's the Islamic Association for Palestine, and it includes all kinds of news articles from publications like the Muslim World Monitor, the Muslim Students Association. So it's sort of compiling a bunch of different sources from the pro-Palestinian side, and then Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu's party, the Likud, they have a site.
Okay, here's a probably naive question, but can you find stuff in other languages on the internet in this country?
Yes, the vast majority of the internet is written in English, but some of these sites that I've just shown you, in fact, you can get in other languages. There are French versions, there are Islamic versions, but I would probably say 80 to 90% of the internet is written in English.
All right.
Sort of the universal language of the net.
Is that so?
English, yeah.
How widespread is the net in other countries? I mean, are we far and away beyond them in terms of the number of people who have access to it and know how to use it?
Based on trying to find sites, the vast majority pop up from various institutions here. And as I was researching this story, a lot of the sites about hotspots throughout the world turned out to come from American universities. So it is definitely dominated by English language, although it is a global phenomenon.
All right, excellent. And links to the sites that Mary just showed us, by the way, can be found on the on-air section of our website at msnbc.com. And we'll be right back after this on MSNBC. Stay tuned.
Keep up!
See you up there.
Fine, huh? Hey, Mom.
Hi.
Did you leave any dirt out there? All right, little.
Hey, I'm thirsty.
Yeah, what you got? Okay, listen up. We got some purple stuff, OJ, soda. Sunny D, I'll take one. Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Tastes like orange, tangerine, and lime.
Some healthy junk, too. Sunny D to go. All right.
Sunny Delight, the good stuff kids go for.
Could we ask you a personal question? Does your mouth feel really clean?
Compared to what?
What do you mean, really clean?
Does your mouth feel baking soda clean?
Yeah. Well,
Not as confident as you thought, huh? Then you want the fresh, clean feeling of baking soda combined with proven germ-killing power. You want baking soda scope. Clean feeling, great taste, fresh breath. It's the baking soda way to feel kissably clean. Clean Mint Baking Soda Scope.
I hope this will be as exciting for viewers to watch as it will be for me to do.
It gives the audience an opportunity to participate.
Kind of a revolution in terms of the way television has been
I'm
done.
confined in most of my interviews to about 5 minutes at the most, but here I'll have a whole hour.
In a show like this, everybody's the host.
Internight every night at 8, only on MSNBC.
With all the day's news this morning, including the latest on Russian President Boris Yeltsin's health, let's turn now to Lori Stokes at the news desk. Lori?
Hi, Jody. In Moscow, Vice President Al Gore had some extra time on his hands this morning. Russian President Boris Yeltsin all of a sudden canceled their scheduled meeting just minutes before it was supposed to begin. Aides say that Yeltsin just needed to get away, so he began a 2-week vacation at a government resort. Departure has renewed fears about the Russian leader's health. He had virtually dropped from sight after the presidential runoff election earlier this month. In Northern Ireland this morning, more rioting, but this time the riots were isolated and no one was injured. For the last week, Northern Ireland has experienced the worst street violence in decades. And yesterday, the first bomb blast since 1994. A Catholic wedding party was evacuated from a country hotel just before a car bomb went off. 3 people suffered minor injuries. In Saudi Arabia, what could be a crucial discovery in the bombing attack against U.S. servicemen has sparked some friction between U.S. and Saudi officials. Saudi officials say they have found the getaway car believed to have been used in last month's blast. They say it was a white Chevrolet Caprice Classic, but the whole finding has made U.S. officials mad and skeptical. Apparently, the car had surfaced just days after the bombing, but American investigators were never told. In Denver, Colorado, the Oklahoma City bombing case heads back to the courtroom today. On the agenda, closed-circuit TV coverage of the trial for the victims and their families. Also, evidence the defense once thrown out, among them bomb-making materials seized from suspect Terry Nichols' home and the clothing Timothy McVeigh wore when he was arrested. Dire straits for Bob Dole. According to the latest MSNBC poll, Dole's in a hole. If the election were held today, Dole would lose 54% to 30%. Dole's dropped 7 percentage points in the last 3 weeks, while President Clinton has held steady at 54%. Meantime, the poll found that most people approve of the job Mr. Clinton has done. 54% of the voters polled say the president is doing a good job. If you've been watching MSNBC today, you've heard us talking about the extremely tight security surrounding the Olympics game. That, of course, because of the threat of terrorism. But here's something else that we have learned about the crunch. What crunch? Well, Mark Strassman joins us now with that story from Centennial Center in downtown Atlanta. It has something to do with credentials, eh, Mark?
Good morning, Lori. Very much to do with credentials. We are very much in demand that wherever we go to have our credentials, make sure everything's ready, because, as you say, this truly is crunch week for all the folks here, the week when Atlanta really has to get it together in time for Friday's opening ceremonies. One of the big worries, of course, has been traffic. When you are having a summer party and the guest list includes 2 million people, you have to worry about how they're going to get to your party and where they're all going to park. Today, traffic was somewhat worse than usual. Atlanta, of course, is notorious for its congestion. It was worse than usual, but still somewhat manageable as long as you allowed yourself plenty of time and you had also some patience in your tank. It is going to get worse, however, as the week goes on, and that is why the real crunch is expected to be on MARTA, which is the city's public transportation system. That was reported to be very heavy today, the use of that public transportation system. And MARTA's success this week will be a key to keeping these games moving along smoothly. Traffic was also very heavy today in the area where athletes get their credentials. You're going to see now the area where the Brazilian team here walking in to get credentialed. There are as many as 5,000 athletes today alone who will be getting their credentials, in part because today's the first day you can actually move into the Olympic Village where the athletes will live for free. And so, therefore, the athletes who have been waiting for that moment when they can actually move in and not have to pay the $100 a night, which is what the ACOG, the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games, has been charging until now, those folks are all moving in today. They're expected to be very heavy. You're looking at the Ukrainian team here getting credentialed. About 4,000 athletes have arrived so far from 96 countries, another 100 countries or so to go. So, again, the big story is credentials, and you also will see a lot of increased security this week. Already we've seen much more of an emphasis on these credentials.
We're going to have to jump in for a minute, cut you off. We understand the big problem in Atlanta. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay with us. See you right back here at MSNBC.
Computers in Silicon Valley have a model number on them, and that's it. At Gateway 2000, our custom-built computers are treated a little differently. That's because every system we build has a name attached.
Connie Kramer, Connie from New Jersey. This is your computer, and it's on television.
Gateway computers feature the Intel Pentium processor. And the only way to get them is to call 1-800-GATEWAY. You get a friend in the business, give us a call.
How many germs do you think are riding on that school bus? Millions, I'd say. Plus 2 kids that belong to me. Do I worry about them? Sure, but at least I know they're coming home to Safeguard.
Washing with Safeguard antibacterial soap eliminates more than 99% of germs you've come in contact with.
The more germs we get rid of, the better I feel.
Safeguard the ones you love. Safeguard against germs.
When the day is just about done, the world isn't going anywhere. It'll now be there waiting for you.
The news with Brian Williams next, only on MSNBC.
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best. It's the quilted quicker picker-upper. Bounty is quicker. It gets what this other towel left behind. Ordinary towels fall apart, even top quality towels, but Bounty's more durable.
The quilted quicker picker-upper.
Quilted Bounty.
Okay, Stevie, time to get out.
Young Stevie is about to discover a whole new bath tissue. New Charmin Ultra.
The softest and stronger than ever. It's as soft as facial tissue, but now it's the strongest one, too. Even under these wet conditions, new Charmin Ultra beats the competition. It's the new bath tissue that's the perfect combination of softness and strength. New Charmin Ultra. The softest thing next to your skin. The strongest it's ever been.
Stevie, time for bed.
Jim Miklaszewski joins us now from the White House with reaction to Boris Yeltsin's surprise no-show to a meeting with Vice President Al Gore. Jim, what is the Clinton administration's reaction to this?
Well, Jody, there's a certain level of frustration here at the White House today because they're not getting any more information about Yeltsin's condition through official channels than the Russians are putting out through their public dispatches. Now, officials here at the White House are trying to play down the significance of this event. They said this is the kind of thing that's happened with Boris Yeltsin before, and they don't think, for the moment anyway, that it's any more serious than previous occasions. Now, administration officials tell NBC News it has been known for some time that Yeltsin does in fact suffer from some heart ailment and will probably have to undergo heart surgery at some time in the future, but they're emphasizing that they have no idea that this cancellation of his visit with Vice President Al Gore is in any way connected to that. In fact, they point to a telephone conversation that Boris Yeltsin had with President Clinton just 10 days ago. President Clinton called Yeltsin to congratulate him on his victory in the Russian presidential elections. And at that time, Yeltsin complained vigorously about campaign fatigue. Yeltsin told President Clinton that for the past 4 months, he's had to endure a grueling schedule of 7 or 8 campaign appearances a day. And Yeltsin told President Clinton, now, I realize that you're used to that kind of thing, but here in Russia, it's totally new to us. U.S. officials are keeping an eye on the situation, and they fully expect Al Gore to meet with Boris Yeltsin sometime tomorrow.
All right, Jim, thank you. And if you can stick with us for a moment, right now I'd like to reintroduce everybody to some of our friends here at MSNBC. We're calling them contributors, Laura Ingram, Lawrence O'Donnell, and Niger Innes. And you may be wondering, who are these people? Well, you'll get to know them as you tune in. We have a bunch of contributors, probably about 12 of you in all, and we'll combine them in different combinations. There are journalists, there's lawyers, there's humorists, and they're going to give us their take on all this here today. And Niger, I know you wanted to comment on what might happen if, heaven forbid, Boris Yeltsin should take a turn for the worse.
Absolutely. I think this current situation just gives us another reminder that he's not going to make it through a term. And if that were the case, the good news is that within the line of succession is not Ledbed. Ledbed is not going to take over if Yeltsin should die.
How are you sure of that?
Well, according to the Constitution, to be the prime minister, and Jim can help me out here if I'm correct. But the bad news is I believe you have to have an election within a year. And in that election, Ledbed would be a very powerful candidate, particularly when you consider that Yeltsin named him to be successor, pretty much named him all but the guaranteed successor to his administration. And that would be troubling.
Yeah, the provision for succession is that the prime minister take over for 90 days, and you must have a special election within 90 days. This is going to put Russia, if this were to happen soon, this would put Russia through another tumultuous election in a very short period of time, and the outcome there would be very unpredictable. But this is the moment in which you discover how mature a democracy this is, how mature a government this is. You test the strength of a government in the transition. Making a peaceful transition of power is very difficult. Immature governments can't do it. It's the great strength of the American system that it's been able to do it for a couple hundred years.
I'm going to try to make a peaceful transition to a commercial break, and we'll be right back to continue this discussion after this here on MSNBC.
So many things in the shower that promised moisture, but I always needed body lotion.
Olay 2-in-1 body wash moisturizes better than any leading bar or body wash, guaranteed.
But this made a big difference right away.
With 75% moisturizer day after day, it gives skin more and more moisture.
And the more I used it, the better my skin felt.
Accept the Olay invitation. After 5 days with Olay 2-in-1, if your skin isn't noticeably more moisturized, call for a refund.
Who wants body lotion when skin feels like this?
2, 1, blast off!
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's Bounty's at its best. It's the quilted quicker picker-upper. Bounty is quicker. It gets what this other towel left behind. Ordinary towels tear on carpets, even top-quality towels, but Bounty's stronger, more durable.
The quilted quicker picker-upper.
Quilted Bounty.
New moms need all the help they can get. Tonight, my husband's doing it all. Even the dishes. He pre-rinses everything, right down to the very last dish.
No matter who does the dishes, Cascade does the dirty work. Other leading brands can leave spots. Cascade with sheeting action gets them so clean they're virtually spotless.
Perfect, honey. Honey?
You can keep all those moisturizers that promise to correct my wrinkles. I want to stop them before they start.
UV rays can cause wrinkles. Now help stop them by using a Moisturizer Plus sunscreen every day. Oil of Olay Daily UV Protectant. Only Oil of Olay combines its light, greaseless moisturizer with SPF 15 to help prevent premature aging.
The only good wrinkle is the one you never get.
For a lifetime of beautiful skin, help stop wrinkles before they start. Oil of Olay Daily UV Protectant.
I hope this will be as exciting for viewers to watch as it will be for me to do.
It gives the audience an opportunity to participate.
Kind of a revolution in terms of the way television has been
I'm
done.
confined in most of my interviews to about 5 minutes at the most, but here I'll have a whole hour.
In a show like this, everybody's the host.
Internight, tonight at 8, only on MSNBC.
Welcome back. Jim Nikolashevsky joins us once again from the White House with some news for us, Jim.
Well, Jody, to pick up on the conversation you had just a moment ago about succession to Boris Yeltsin, should he be forced to leave office, the Clinton administration is obviously more comfortable with the Prime Minister, Viktor Chernomyrdin, because he's a reformer in sort of the Western sense of the word, and they feel like he would take Russia on that continued path toward reform. But they're already starting to rationalize some kind of power sharing, perhaps, with Alexander Lebed, the hardliner. They say it probably wouldn't be a bad thing to have Chernomyrdin and Lebed working together, because Lebed brings a more hardline traditional approach to ruling in Russia that perhaps may make the Russian people feel more comfortable that they wouldn't be giving up the farm to the West. In any event, they'd be looking for a smooth transition if that should come about. But again, they're emphasizing here that there's no indication that Yeltsin is going to be forced to step down anytime soon.
Yeah, let's not get carried away with this. I mean, Boris Yeltsin has never been very particular about observing diplomatic niceties. There was a time when his plane stopped in Ireland and the entire Irish government was out there waiting to meet him, the head of state, and he never got out of the plane. And, you know, he stood up Al Gore. That's really all this amounts to.
He's the Vice President of the United States of America.
But for Boris, this is not as big a deal as it is for us.
What's PGS?
Pre-Gore syndrome. That's what a lot of people suffer. I'm just kidding. No, seriously, I think we're playing this up a little too much. It's obviously an important question, but remember, another political figure also complained of campaign fatigue. His name was Marion Barry. I don't think they went to the same spa, but you know, it is a bit of a draining process. And unless we know more about his health, and I don't know how important that is. What is good is for Al Gore and the president to be pushing for and ushering in peace in Russia. The Chechenian conflict is huge, and if they can have some effect on that, that'll be a big point in Clinton's favor, I think, going into this election, because this is a very precarious time. I lived in Russia in 1983 when Andropov was president. Those were really rocky times. There's still an element in Russia which still clings to the Soviet communist past. That's still bubbling up, and if we have another election, I think you know, all the cards are out, you know, still to be played on this, and we'll see what happens.
All right, if you think the Yeltsin-Gore thing isn't a huge deal, what does interest you that's in the news today? Everything is on the table. What do you want to talk about?
Wow.
I think the responsibility is a burden.
MSNBC.
I think
coming online.
The question that we talked about in the break about lottery winners being actually gone after by the New York State Lottery Commission and welfare officials saying, look, if you're winning, you're hitting the big one in lotto, you're not supposed to be collecting welfare benefits. It's kind of a funny little illustration of how there are lots of holes in the welfare system. Sometimes people who don't really need help take money from people who do. It's a little interesting story in the news today, and maybe we'll see a nationwide effort to start socking back some of those winnings from people who are on welfare.
You know, this thing is a pure stunt. This is not about people winning the big one. The average winnings on this are less than $1,000. And the state of New York is saying if you're on welfare and you've won anything over $600, you have to give half of that money back to the state. Well, it's already the law that if you come into money when you're on welfare, that you have to pay back the state for some of the support that it's given you. And this is just the governor trying to come up with a gimmick. It's ridiculous.
It's fun, though.
Lawrence, you've got the last word on lottery and welfare benefits. Congratulations. That just about does it for me today, but you're not free yet. You're going to stick around because John Siegenthaler is coming up next. In fact, he's here right now to tell us what is on tap. Good morning, John.
Hi there, Jody. We're going to talk more about Russia and Boris Yeltsin. We're also going to do an interview with Sinn Féin leader Jerry Adams, and we'll have the latest on the MSNBC poll. It is all coming up on MSNBC. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The ultimate news surf. MSNBC.
To some, it's a place to hang their hat. Others say it's where the heart is. And still others think of it as their little piece of heaven. But no matter how you describe it, there's a Comet home care cleaner to clean it. Whichever the room, Comet cleans more than just surface dirt. Its deep cleaning action gets to the bottom of deep down embedded dirt, so you get more than a surface clean. You get something that goes much deeper. Comet Home Care Cleaners, a deeper level of clean.
Can you believe it? 7 days to treat a yeast infection. Who has time for that? Well, that's all changed. You don't have to go through a 7-day routine anymore. Now there's a terrific new yeast infection treatment, Femstat 3. Every bit as effective as a 7-day routine, but the only cream strong enough to treat in just 3 days. 3 days. There's no better cure without a prescription. And that means you've got much more time for other things in your life.
New Femstat 3. 3 days to fit your life.
NBC and Microsoft enter a new era as President Clinton joins Tom Brokaw on the premiere of Internight, taking calls and questions from the internet. Tonight at 8 on MSNBC.
Keep up! See up there. Fine, huh?
Hey, Mom.
Did you leave any dirt out there? Hey, I'm thirsty.
Yeah, what you got? Okay, listen up. We got some purple stuff, OJ, soda. Yeah, I'll take one. Oh, yeah.
Tastes like orange tangerine and lime.
Some healthy junk, too. Sunny to go. All right.
Sunny Delight, the good stuff kids go for.
Okay, Stevie, time to get out.
Young Stevie is about to discover a whole new bath tissue. New Charmin Ultra. The softest and stronger than ever. It's as soft as facial tissue, but now it's the strongest one, too. Even under these wet conditions, new Charmin Ultra beats the competition. It's the new bath tissue that's the perfect combination of softness and strength. New Charmin Ultra. The softest thing next to your skin. The strongest it's ever been.
Stevie, time for bed.
You're connected to MSNBC.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Siegenthaler, and you are watching MSNBC. In the news, Boris Yeltsin is playing hard to get. He has canceled a meeting with Al Gore, and now his health is back in question. Also, security for the Atlanta Olympics is tight, but is it tight enough? And Bob Dole is in a pinch. A new poll has the Republican challenger falling fast. It doesn't look good for Bob Dole. An MSNBC poll conducted over the weekend has the Republican challenger fading and fading fast. If the election were held today, President Clinton would pick up 54% of the vote, and Dole would get 30, 7 points lower than he had just 3 weeks ago. Dole's losing ground among 3 key voter groups: men, independent, Republicans and the poll found more Americans say that they are better off under President Clinton now than they were 4 years ago. And most approve of the job that Mr. Clinton has done, despite the slew of scandals that have hit the White House. One of those scandals, Whitewater, has dogged Clinton for much of his term. And today it's claimed Clinton's Arkansas successor. NBC's Gwen Ifill joins us now from Little Rock, Arkansas, with the latest on the resignation of Governor Jim Guy Tucker and the shockwaves from Whitewater. Good morning, Gwen.
Good morning, John. Trials, investigations, congressional hearings. None of them seem to have hurt the White House so far. But here in the president's home state of Arkansas, Whitewater's victims are well known. Governor Jim Guy Tucker steps down today from the post he inherited from Bill Clinton. Convicted of conspiracy and fraud, he's being forced from office in disgrace. Another trial is now underway at the federal courthouse here, and the President of the United States has been forced to testify by videotape for the second time. A bigger problem for the White House, one of the president's most trusted aides, Deputy White House counsel Bruce Lindsay, has been named as an unindicted co-conspirator in the case and is expected to testify today or tomorrow. Prosecutors say he covered up illegal political contributions in 1990 from these men, a charge he steadfastly denies, and prosecutors have not charged him. The president's testimony is expected to center on whether, as governor, he promoted Herbie Branscombe to the State Highway Commission after the banker made a $15,000 contribution to his 1990 gubernatorial campaign. The latest MSNBC poll shows Clinton's lead over Republican Bob Dole has only grown as various White House mini-scandals have continued. And while these are a cause for concern, most voters say other issues matter more. Nevertheless, Republicans are ready to pounce.
Finally, there are too many scandals, and whether it's because they're corrupt or it's because they're incompetent, there is a point, you sort of get to a factor where you say that's too much.
And First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton, who has been implicated in many of the White House problems, insists she should not be the issue.
I think the election is between my husband and his opponents, and each person in this race is free to express himself and present himself as he chooses to the American public.
House is hoping that Bob Dole's own problems on the campaign overshadow their Whitewater controversies. Meanwhile, here in Arkansas, Governor Mike Huckabee is sworn in today to pick up the reins from Clinton's Democratic successor. John?
Gwen, down there in Little Rock, what are they saying around that trial? Are they talking about politics as well as the trial itself?
Well, you know, here in Little Rock, Whitewater is not a very popular subject. Folks think that independent prosecutor Kenneth Starr is on a political vendetta. It's a very small political environment down here. Everybody knows somebody affected, and they're not amused at all.
Any observations down there on why it doesn't appear that Whitewater and all these investigations are sticking to President Clinton?
Well, down here they say it's because it's a political plot and everybody knows about it. But in a larger sense, the reason it isn't sticking to President Clinton, I think, is because people are more concerned about their own personal issues. As long as the economy is doing well, you can see in our poll, as long as people feel like their needs are being met, they don't really want to hear anything about scandals unless someone is indicted.
But Bruce Lindsay, the unindicted co-conspirator, is awfully close to the President of the United States. What about the question of character?
Well, no one is closer than Bruce Lindsay. A lot of people think he knows a lot of secrets. But the fact of the matter is he was not named or charged in this investigation. And the unindicted co-conspirator tag, I think, is a way of tarring Bruce Lindsay and perhaps raising questions about the White House. But so far, it hasn't taken. If people raise questions about Bill Clinton's character, I think it'll about whether he can keep the promises he makes in the White House.
Gwen, I know people in Arkansas are not very happy with Whitewater. Give us a little idea of what the talk is among some of the folks that you see down in Little Rock.
Well, it ranges from skepticism to ignoring it entirely to outright anger that we Northeasterners will come down here and treat these folks like this as dog patch. In fact, what's happened over the years in this state capital, and a lot of state capitals, is a lot of people know each other and make deals. The question is, when the president gets the White House, the spotlight goes on all of his friends. And they're not amused by it, but the questions have to be answered.
All right. Gwen, if you'd hang on there for just a second, joining us now to talk about Whitewater and politics, our MSNBC contributors, Laura Ingraham, Lawrence O'Donnell and Niger Innes. Thanks for being here. It doesn't seem to be having any impact on the president, does it?
Well, depending on how you ask the poll questions, maybe not. But in one of the last polls asked last week, I think it was a Wall Street Journal poll, more than 60% of Americans thought the Clintons were lying, both about Whitewater and about Filegate. Bob Dole's got to say, look, no one's interested in digging up old scandals that are 20 years old, but especially about Filegate, we're talking about an administration gathering personal information, not only on Republicans, frankly, but on Democrats. Is this the way we want to conduct business in the White House? Dole is not going to win by just talking about those issues, but that's an important character question that Dole can use to his benefit.
On the one hand, they say he's lying. On the other hand, a lot of people say they'll vote for the president.
Yeah, this
doesn't make sense.
This is not difficult to understand. This just tells you
they'll vote for people they think are lying.
It tells you what the public expects of politicians. It has a built-in expectation now that a governor will be engaged or a senator will be engaged in somewhat questionable deals to possibly enrich themselves. They think, and they're not that wrong, that most office holders do favors for their contributors and their friends, that mayors do this, that governors do this, that senators and congressmen do this. And they don't find it extraordinary at all.
You agree, Niger?
Well, I believe that Clinton is the Teflon man. I mean, he's brought Teflon to a new level. I mean, it's unbelievable with Whitewater, with Travelgate, with the Filegate, with Paula Jones, with all these things, the drip, drip, drip of all these pending investigations. He is still, if the election were held today, he'd win in a way that no Democrat has since Lyndon Johnson beat Barry Goldwater.
When do you think that the president's campaign people would be surprised by this poll? Do you think that, is this just the way the plan is supposed to go?
Well, I think even they are surprised by how well things are going, but they also know that Bill Clinton has had enough setbacks in the past, so they can't get too cocky. I disagree a little bit with what Niger just said about the Teflon president. In fact, the fact is, all of these things are sticking to Bill Clinton. They just don't change people's minds unless they have an alternative. And as what Laura did is what Republicans are trying to do, which is change the subject and make sure that it's about something like Filegate, something that happened in the White House, than Whitewater, which happened years ago.
I don't hear Bob Dole, though, Laura, talking much about Whitewater.
Well, exactly. Bob Dole shouldn't be talking about those issues. His surrogates can talk about these issues. And what I would say to Gwen is, no, it's not about, the election's not about, purely about ethics. It is about Bob Dole. This shows the weakness of Bob Dole. I mean, we have a scandal brewing, which moderates are saying could be to the extent of Watergate. And this guy is incredibly popular. What is going on? Bob Dole is not resonating with the American public, and Republicans are worried about it.
What's interesting is you hear it from Republicans. You hear it from Senator D'Amato. You hear it from the Republican governors over the weekend, and Jack Kemp as well. Everybody in the Republican Party seems to be criticizing Bob Dole as well.
But at this time,
go ahead, Gwen.
At this time in 1992, all the Democrats were criticizing Bill Clinton, too. If Bob Dole were somehow around convention time to turn this around, believe me, all those Republicans would be right on board, and they'd say they were there all the time.
That's a very important point. The spirit in the Democratic Party, I can tell you, 4 years ago, was identical to the Republican spirit today about their nominee. Our guy was running third at the time. We thought it was going to be a wipeout and a destruction of the party.
So this is all too early, huh?
One big difference, the economy was horrible 4 years ago. It's much better now and much more stable now.
That's the question Ronald Reagan asked.
Whitewater is never going to get traction until someone can present Whitewater to you in one or at most two sentences that sounds awful. Somebody tell me in one or two sentences what Bill or Hillary Clinton did.
We're going to try and help you do that.
Something wrong.
We're going to try and help you do that. Stand by for just a second. If you have a hard time keeping all the names straight in this Whitewater story, you got lots of company. Here's one way to keep track. It's a Whitewater gallery on our MSNBC website. Now, we visited this gallery earlier today, and you can choose any name you want to, making news in this case, and click on the mouse, learn more about who it is, like Bruce Lindsay, and find how that person fits into this jigsaw puzzle of the story. You know where to look, MSNBC.com. Back in a minute with the news headlines, and coming up later, a trip to the past and to the moon.
When you buy a computer factory direct from Gateway 2000, our tech experts are there for you around the clock. What keeps them going?
When I fix their problems, guys that I don't even know will just come out and say, "I love you, Gretchen. I'm married." At least I know I still got it.
Gateway computers feature the Intel Pentium processor. And the only way to get them is to call 1-800-GATEWAY. You've got a friend in the business. Give us a call.
My family wrote the book on stains. Kids were invented to make stains. I mean, I have really tough stains.
Then my older sister,
My mom, my friends, my cousin Meg
told me about Ultra Biz.
I was surprised Biz was a color-safe bleach.
This stuff really works. No more barbecue sauce.
Even handle my kids' dirt. Biz saved these jeans.
Can you believe we had spaghetti last night?
Biz really kicks.
I got my proof. Biz really is better.
I'm telling everybody.
Ultra Biz is the better stain getter.
Ray and I set up shop here in the 60s. Man doesn't have a lazy bone in his body. Some time ago, his hands began bothering him. He'd go about his business, but was taking a lot of pills. So our doctor said to try a leave.
You know, I could take just 2 leave all day. Says so on the label.
With Advil, you were taking 4.
With Tylenol, it was 6.
Just 2 leaves is all he takes. What could be easier? Ray's in every day except Sunday.
Gotta get my fishing in sometime.
Aleve. All day strong, all day long.
To some, it's where the heart is. Others think of it as their sanctuary, while still others say it's their little piece of heaven. But no matter how you describe it, there's a Comet home care cleaner to clean it. Whichever the room, Comet cleans more than just surface dirt. Its deep cleaning action gets to the bottom of deep down embedded dirt, so you get more than a surface clean. You get something that goes much deeper. Comet home care cleaners, a deeper level of clean.
The revolution begins here.
Because from now on, NBC News and Microsoft will revolutionize the way you get news.
MSNBC.
A 24-hour cable and internet news service. The future of news from the people you know. MSNBC.
There are new questions about Boris Yeltsin's health just 2 weeks after Yeltsin was reelected as Russia's president. Now, Yeltsin canceled a meeting with Vice President Gore this morning. The meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow, but will take place at a resort where Yeltsin is said to be resting. Now, Yeltsin has been pretty much out of sight for most of the last month. The 65-year-old leader has a history of heart troubles. Joining us now from Moscow to talk about Yeltsin's health is Mikhail Shevelov. He's an editor at the Russian newspaper, the Moscow News. Good morning, Mr. Shevelov.
Morning.
Can you tell us anything? Have you got an update on Mr. Yeltsin's health?
There is no news. The official version is that the president has taken a 2-week vacation that he's going to spend near Moscow, and his health is not in perfect condition after a very difficult campaign, but it's said to be okay.
You say that's the official...
That's at least what most people believe.
You say that's the official version. Is there really another version?
Well, another version is unofficial, and it's already been mentioned that Mr. Yeltsin has a history of heart disease, and obviously it's true.
What does it say about Mr. Yeltsin's ability, you think, to govern the country?
I don't think it really affects his ability to govern the country. It's mostly his age and the people around him who hinder him in his desire to govern this country properly.
Well, when he's out of touch or he is in bad health, who is really running the country?
It is not clear at the moment who is really the man number 2 in Kremlin, and obviously there is a huddle in Kremlin, and the fight is still going on. It seems that the positions of Mr. Chernomyrdin are very strong, and there is another man, Mr. Chubais, who is gaining strength and influence.
Well, Mr. Shevelov, we hope to find more about Mr. Yeltsin's health tomorrow when he meets with Vice President Gore. Thank you very much for joining us from Moscow. Well, more violence in Northern Ireland and the latest on the Saudi bombing. For the latest on the news, we go to Laurie Stokes in the newsroom. Laurie.
Hi, John. Thank you. More rioting in Northern Ireland this morning, but this time it's isolated. No one was injured in today's violence. However, in the last few days, Northern Ireland has seen the worst street fighting in years. And yesterday, a car bomb demolished a rural hotel after a phone call warning of the blast. 250 people attending a Catholic wedding were evacuated. 3 people were slightly injured. 3 weeks after that deadly truck bombing in Saudi Arabia, the U.S. complains that it's being shut out of the Saudis' investigation. Saudis say they found the bomber's getaway car just days after the attack, but FBI agents say that they haven't seen it. Another contentious issue between the two nations. The U.S. wants to move some of its troops to safer locations. The Saudi defense minister says the U.S. forces are safe right where they are. In sports, driver Jeff Krosnoff died Sunday when his car went airborne. His wheels touched the front in him. The Toronto crash also took the life of a racetrack worker. Meanwhile, in France, 5 people are dead following a race crash there. A car plowed into a group of spectators. Here's a quick scan of what's happening in today's weather. Beautiful day in the northwest, but batten down the hatches in the northeast. They've got severe thunderstorms in New England, and look at the area that's around Phoenix, which we'll show you in a little bit. They're finally getting some rain. No such luck for Texas, though. Meanwhile, a little bit of luck on the temperature front. No record-breaking scorches out there, just typical summer heat. A little milder than usual in most places. Anyone traveling later today may run into some rain in the southeast, but nothing severe. The only trouble spot is that northeast corridor. There's a peek of what's going on weather-wise around the nation. Now back to you, John.
Thank you, Lori. Bertha moved through pretty fast, dumped a lot of rain in the northeast, and now we've got another round of rain one time. Right. All right. Thank you, Lori. We'll be right back with MSNBC in just a moment.
When Tokyo Electric Power turned to GE for its advanced turbine technology, it gave Tokyo the largest, most efficient power plant of its kind in the world, which means more jobs for people back home and a better future for the people of Japan.
Okay, Stevie, time to get out.
Young Stevie is about to discover a whole new bath tissue. New Charmin Ultra. The softest and stronger than ever. It's the softest facial tissue, but now it's the strongest one, too. Even under these wet conditions, new Charmin Ultra beats the competition. It's the new bath tissue that's the perfect combination of softness and strength. New Charmin Ultra. The softest thing next to your skin, the strongest it's ever been.
Stevie, time for bed.
It's a remarkable new surgery that saved hundreds of lives and could save thousands more. So why does Medicare now refuse to pay for it? They used to. Health Watch, NBC 90 News tonight.
To some, it's where the heart is. Others think of it as their sanctuary, while still others say it's their little piece of heaven. But no matter how you describe it, there's a Comet home care cleaner to clean it. Whichever the room, Comet cleans more than just surface dirt. Its deep cleaning action gets to the bottom of deep down embedded dirt, so you get more than a surface clean. You get something that goes much deeper. Comet Home Care Cleaners, a deeper level of clean.
Ray and I set up shop here in the 60s. Man doesn't have a lazy bone in his body. Some time ago, his hands began bothering him. He'd go about his business, but was taking a lot of pills. So our doctor said to try leave.
You know, I could take just 2 Aleve all day. Says so on the label.
With Advil, you were taking 4.
With Tylenol, it was 6.
Just 2 leaves is all he takes. What could be easier? Ray's in every day except Sunday.
Gotta get my fishing in sometime.
Aleve. All day strong, all day long.
Shannon Lucid is a biochemist and mother of 3 grown children. What distinguishes her from other biochemist moms is the fact that she's an astronaut. And in a couple of hours, Shannon Lucid will set a new record for the most time spent in space, 115 days. Now, Lucid is aboard the Russian space station Mir with 2 Russian crew members. She held a press conference a short while ago from Mir and reflected on the meaning of setting a space endurance record.
Well, I think for my family, it means that I've been gone from home for an awful long time. It's time to come home and, and start doing, you know, the things that I normally do around the house. As far as setting a record, I just hope that it's not a record that holds for very long, because I hope in the next few years that quite a few Americans will have the opportunity to spend a long time in space, and that NASA, that America will be able to gain a lot of experience with long-duration space flight. So I hope the record doesn't stand for very long.
Well, much of what we know about space today was a mystery 27 years ago. The crew from Apollo 11 was preparing to travel in space and then do something no human has done before, walk on the moon. NBC was at Cape Canaveral live, preparing America and the world for what they would see. In this brief segment from MSNBC's show Time and Again, Chad Huntley describes NASA's mission control the night before the historic launch.
Nerve Center is Mission Control, NASA's communications center in Houston. Prime Flight Director for Apollo 11 is Cliff Charlesworth. As always, alert and relaxed, they sit in front of space-age consoles of TV tubes and blinking lights. An array of electronic gear stretched around the world is continually reporting. The communications marshalling point is Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland.
Honeysuckle, this is Goddard Network. Would you give us the status, please, of your antenna slew checks? Give us the x-axis first.
Antenna slew through the x-axis is smooth, and the tracking data looks good.
Roger, and how's the y-axis?
The servo system seems a bit tight, but the tracking data is good. We see no problem for the Apollo 11 launch tomorrow.
Roger, Honeysuckle, thank you. Madrid, this is Goddard Network. Would you give us the status, please, of your Astro voice air ground checks?
Madrid, Roger. Terminal getting short count on CSM air ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test out. All checks at Madrid have been completed. We are go for launch tomorrow.
If more removed geographically, it's still a big moment, too, where most of the hardware began. The plant which assembled the Apollo 11 spacecraft, all 2 million parts of it. It's a kind of Walter Mitty quality, where even the worker who tightened the smallest connection has a keen sense of participation. Here and on pad 39, where hundreds of last-minute checks have been made in recent days, each man has his own thoughts.
I'm just as excited as I can be. And I've pointed out to my people that we're standing on the threshold of a discovery that man has not seen for over 400 years, and I'm just tickled pink.
This is the one. This is the one that's going to tell us whether we have got it or haven't got it.
There's no telling what we're on the threshold of right now. It's probably like it was back in the days of Columbus. Nobody knew what was going to happen when Columbus set sail.
It's real impressive. It's one of the biggest things in my life.
More on MSNBC right after this. Don't go away.
Good morning, guys.
Just when you think your diarrhea medicine is working.
Oh, boy. What's wrong?
It can let you down. But you can count on Imodium AD to stop diarrhea, often in just 1 dose, instead of dose after dose, more than 1/3 of a bottle of the pink stuff. And Imodium AD is even better than the leading prescription.
I told you we should have stopped for Imodium AD.
Imodium AD, 1 dose relief you can count on.
When spills are at their worst, Bounty's at its best. It's the quilted quicker picker-upper. Bounty is quicker. It gets what this other towel left behind. Ordinary towels fall apart, even top quality towels, but Bounty's more durable.
The quilted quicker picker-upper.
Quilted Bounty.
When your town hosts the Summer Olympics, everything and everybody gets busier. Atlanta's airport is no exception. Now, the pre-Olympic week is the busiest travel period. Mark Strassman reports from Atlanta.
If you hate crowds, avoid Atlanta's airport, especially this week.
The hoagie bag is missing.
But Helen and Carl Hahn arrived, like 25,000 other people today, arriving just for the games.
We've been saving for 4 years for this.
What are you going to see?
Baseball, mostly baseball, because that was the cheapest.
Diving, handball, weightlifting,
beach volleyball.
Beach volleyball.
And we hope to see the dream team.
So do these guys, sort of. The Angolan basketball team, bouncing into Atlanta along with the Italian gymnasts and the American women's team. And yes, they really are that small. Unlike this guy. You'll do better this time against the dream team?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the new strategy?
It's super.
Atlanta's ongoing strategy, get it built, get it finished. The torch today in eastern Georgia moves ever closer to Olympic Stadium, along with all these people.
Right here.
Stacy Purifoy's job, find Olympic athletes, officials, big shots, and guide them through the airport adventure.
To make sure it's nice and smooth, there's no confusion, and that they all have a great time once they get here.
So many bags from so many added flights for so many Olympic travelers heading here to Atlanta. In fact, so many travelers that this airport recently jumped ahead of Chicago's O'Hare as the world's busiest airport. Atlanta's also become the most credentialed community anywhere. All sorts of new records, and the games have yet to begin. Mark Strassman, NBC News, Atlanta.
Meanwhile, the increase of terrorism and violence around the world and here at home has brought about much tighter security measures for the Summer Games. We'll have a special report on Olympic security coming up a little later. And also coming up, an update on our MSNBC poll on Clinton and Dole and violence in Northern Ireland. We'll talk with Sinn Féin leader Jerry Adams. All that and more coming up right after this on MSNBC. Don't go away.
When I sing from my soul, it reflects my inner pride and confidence. Part of that confidence is knowing that when I open my mouth, my teeth are incredibly clean. That's why I switched from ordinary toothpaste to Tartar Control Crest. My dentist says it has special tartar blockers. They're drawn to where tartar is forming, where you can see it and where you can't. So I'm confident my teeth are clean. And when I'm confident, it makes a difference inside and out.
I was just horrified when my daughter had cavities at her last dental visit. I said, "Doctor, what can we do?" He said, "I'll give her a fluoride treatment here, but she's got to brush twice a day the right way at home."
Because you can't have a dentist fluoride treatment every day, between visits, Crest Fluorostat treats your teeth with fluoride to continue the fight against cavities. It's a fluoride treatment for your teeth at home.
So Sally brushed with Crest, and her next visit was great. I've got to act like a mom and think like a dentist.
Crest, a fluoride treatment for your teeth at home.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to MSNBC on our first day. I'm John Siegenthaler, and leading the news in this half hour, renewed concerns over Russian leader Boris Yeltsin's health, and a new MSNBC poll indicates trouble for Bob Dole. Also ahead in this half hour, an interview with the head of the political wing of the Irish Republican Army, Jerry Adams. Lots of news. To take a closer look at the headlines now, here's Lori Stokes. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning, John. Thank you. A spokesman for Russian President Boris Yeltsin insists that his boss is not sick. He says he's just very tired and needs some rest. Those comments come after an abrupt postponement of a morning meeting with Vice President Al Gore. NBC's Jim Maceda picks up the story in Moscow.
Leading a high-powered U.S. delegation to discuss nuts and bolts issues on the economy, defense, and health, Gore was all smiles when he met with Russia's #2 man, Prime Minister Viktor Chernomyrdin. But just an hour earlier, a scheduled meeting with Yeltsin was called off.
I learned this morning that it would be postponed until tomorrow.
Chernomyrdin weighed in, saying that Yeltsin's health was normal, that he was just recovering from an exhaustive presidential campaign. Later, Yeltsin's spokesman said the president had begun a 2-week vacation and warned not to read anything into the change of plans.
There's no basis for panicking. He's simply tired, really tired.
But he'll be resting and meeting Gore here at a sanatorium outside Moscow, where Yeltsin was hospitalized for a heart condition twice in the past year. That's likely to raise yet further questions about Yeltsin's health and his ability to govern. Besides congratulating Yeltsin on his recent re-election, Gore, it is said, is also carrying a stern message of U.S. disapproval of Russia's latest offensive in Chechnya, the breakaway republic. Dozens of Chechen civilians have been killed or wounded in recent days, despite a peace treaty Yeltsin signed with Chechen rebel leaders. Both sides blame the other for the violence, but what is clear, Yeltsin's failed to keep his campaign pledge to end the war. Earlier, Gore made public Washington's displeasure.
We believe that it is the right thing for both parties to return to the ceasefire.
Meanwhile, Moscow remains on high alert after 2 bus bombs last week, leaving 8 Muscovites in serious condition. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attacks, but Moscow authorities suspect Chechen involvement.
That was NBC's Jim Maceda in Moscow. President Clinton is riding high. He's holding strong in the latest polls, according to an MSNBC poll of registered voters. If the election were held today, Clinton would soundly defeat Republican challenger Bob Dole. Dole's slipping in the polls. He's lost 7 percentage points over the past 3 weeks. A sharp split has developed between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. The rift centers around the investigation into the U.S. barracks bombing 3 weeks ago. U.S. officials are complaining Saudi officials didn't tell them about a crucial discovery. The Saudis apparently found the getaway car used by the bombers just days after the blast, but never told American investigators. U.S. officials are skeptical about the findings. Libyan officials are investigating a brawl at a soccer game Friday that left 8 people dead and 3 wounded. Fans, police, and players were involved in the riot, which took place in Tripoli. One of the teams was sponsored by the son of Muammar Gaddafi. The casualties were the result of gunfire and a stampede to flee the stadium. And one final headline to report. The wait is over in Britain. It's Splitsville for the royals. Prince Charles and Princess Diana were granted a preliminary divorce today. It should be finalized in about 6 weeks. We've brought you up and connected with the news desk. Back to you, John.
All right, thank you, Lori. And when we come back, we'll have the very latest on the violence in Northern Ireland. And we'll be joined live with the head of the IRA's political wing, Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams. Don't go away.
Now this ought to be an interesting party. I almost hope Larry shows up.
Whatever your reason for looking great,
Probably won't even notice me.
part of getting that look should include Kellogg's Special K cereal.
Not notice this. Right.
Great toasted taste, 110 calories, and fat-free.
Eat your heart out, Larry.
Kellogg's Special K. Great taste never looks so good.
Going to kill him with kindness.
Remember when your address was where you lived? And a mouse on your desk was hard to handle. Today, life has a whole new meaning. Make the digital revolution work for you with The Site, on cable, on the internet, on MSNBC. The Site, every night at 10 on MSNBC.
Police have arrested several suspected terrorists and seized some bomb-making materials today in London. It's not known if the raid is related to the recent attacks by the Irish Republican Army. Meanwhile, in Northern Ireland early today, there was more rioting. This time, no one was hurt. In the past week, the province has seen the worst street violence in a generation. And yesterday, someone bombed a rural hotel, the first bombing in the province in 2 years. The hotel was packed with a Roman Catholic wedding party when a caller warned of a car bomb. 250 people were evacuated. 3 people suffered minor injuries. Now today, before the House of Commons, Britain's Secretary for Northern Ireland said all sides were at fault in the latest round of violence. Sir Patrick Mayhew called on all parties to work together for peace.
Madam Speaker, all those who wish to lead Northern Ireland towards a more peaceful future, and they certainly include the government, must now work together to re-establish trust and dialogue.
Now, the president of the political wing of the IRA says whoever planted the bomb that we talked about a little earlier may have wanted to draw attention away from how poorly the British government has handled the recent rioting. Now, Jerry Adams, the president of the Sinn Féin party, joins us live now from Belfast. Good morning, Mr. Adams.
Hello, John.
Were you able to hear Sir Patrick Mayhew's statement?
Yes, his response was totally and absolutely pathetic.
Why?
And inadequate. Because we had this week a unionist conspiracy. The leaders of unionism, David Trimble and Ian Paisley, mounted what was a rebellion against the British government. There's even talk about there being a mutiny within sections of the RUC. The British government caved in. And you have seen, I'm sure, the response of the Irish government, to the Catholic Cardinal, to the people of Garbahy Road, and from a united nationalist voice throughout this island, which sees the British government once again caving into the intransigence of unionism. So what is required is not these type of pathetic statements from Patrick Mayhew, but is a new peace process, because the old peace process is dead and it needs rebuilt, and it needs rebuilt on the basis of equality with all the parties involved. Here we have the unionists walking out of talks, organising a conspiracy, and now walking back into talks while those who vote for Sinn Féin are locked out.
And in the meantime, more violence?
No, I have been in the streets and in the very front line trying to get young people to calm down, young people who feel absolutely angry, and I share their anger at the way, for example, 6,000 plastic bullets have been fired at nationalists in the last number of days, at the wholesale campaign of intimidation orchestrated by the unionist leaderships and carried out to some degree by the RUC as well.
Mr. Adams, you said that you've been trying to get young people to calm down, but I saw a clip of you speaking to a group very recently where you said, "We will not lie down" again.
Absolutely, and why should we? Why should we take a seat in the back of the bus? But what is required here, sorry, let me finish. Well, this is our country. We want to share this with other people in this island, with all of the people in the island. And if you had listened to all of what I said we went forward on the basis of generosity. We want to reach out. We are the ones who have been waiting for talks. We are the ones who have created the conditions where there can be a lasting peace. But peace demands justice. And you can't have a situation where a British government tramples over the rights of one section of our people. What is required here is a real peace process.
Do you believe that violence has any place in this fight for freedom on your part?
My commitment is to peace, to a peace settlement, to democracy, and to dialogue as the vehicle and the means of bringing that about. The difficulty I have in this situation is that when I and John Hume and others seek to do that, we are undermined and our efforts are subverted by the stance of the British government, because the unionists proved this week that might, orange might, is what counts, that John Major's government will cave in if they're threatened in the way they were threatened by the unionist leaderships this week. And that's the difficulty which I have, and that's why I'm calling for a root and branch review of the policies of both governments, so that a proper peace process, proper talks can be built which tackle and which remove forever the causes of conflict.
Are you suggesting that all sides should go for peace, should stop these violent acts and stop the terrorism right now?
Everyone should use their influence, and everyone should make a commitment to being involved only in dialogue and to recognizing that dialogue is the way to move forward. That goes for the IUC, for the British Army, for everyone else who is involved in this conflict situation. Let's make a real effort to have a real peace process.
And does that include the IRA? Are you suggesting
Absolutely.
the IRA not commit any terrorist acts?
My view is that there should be an end to all armed actions. My view is that the British government should put no preconditions on any party, that all parties should come together until we resolve and settle all the difficulties to the satisfaction of all the parties involved. And in all of this, and your questions have all the time pointed towards Republicans or nationalists or the IRA, let's talk about the British government.
Well, just for a second, if I could, before
British
you go on to that, let me just ask you the question again. Will you say here that the IRA should stop any of these terrorist activities? Will you? You've said all parties, but you won't mention the IRA. Is there a reason?
With respect, no, there's no reason at all. First of all, the IRA have not been active in the last short while. We have seen the burning out of Catholic homes. We have seen the eviction of Catholic families. We have seen the burning of Catholic property. We have seen the trampling of people's rights. We have seen the armed actions of the IUC and the British Army. We have seen a number of hundreds of nationalists wounded, and 2 have died in the last week. The IRA weren't involved in any of those actions. So let's
been involved in
balance in all of this.
You will admit that they've been involved in actions before in terrorist acts.
Of course they have. Of course they have. And we got them to stop for a year and a half.
And then it started again.
And then it started again because it wasn't underpinned by a real peace process or by real talks. Imagine the reality of a situation that for a year and a half, the IRA were inactive. For a year and a half, there was a complete cessation of IRA operations and there wasn't one word of negotiations. And the unionists were rewarded for that, and the British government thought they could contain the situation. And of course, if the same thing had happened in South Africa or any other conflict situation in the world where there weren't talks for a year and a half, everyone understands that to have peace, you must have talks. Here we have a situation which is blown up in this last week, which was created by the unionists engaging in armed actions, by the IUC and the British Army engaging in armed actions, by the British Army caving in to a campaign which was orchestrated, a campaign of mass intimidation. And of course I want the IRA to stop. I want to see all armed actions ended forever. But I can't do this on my own. And John Major has to be faced squarely in terms of his responsibility for trying to salvage and to rebuild and to recreate a new peace process, because what we have had so far patently hasn't worked. Why hasn't it worked? Because to be a nationalist in the 6 counties is to be a non-citizen. That's the reality of the situation.
The United States government has been involved in somewhat in trying to put peace together in Northern Ireland. Do you think that at this point Americans can play any role in peace?
Well, I think President Clinton has played a consistently positive and balanced role in trying to move the entire situation forward. And I'm sure that he and the White House will continue to play that positive role. And I'm sure that Irish America and other progressive sections of opinion in the USA will continue to play that role. And people understand that a number of things are required to bring about peace. It's the international experience. You need dialogue. You need dialogue on the basis of equality. You need to have dialogue without any preconditions. And you need to have a commitment of all parties to get around the table and to stay at that table and to negotiate until they get agreement. And that's Sinn Féin's commitment.
Mr.
Sinn
Adams,
Féin are totally
we need to take a break
right to that.
We need to take a break right now, but we'd like you to stay with us and we'll be back and talk with you a little more right after this, right here on MSNBC, so don't go away.